M. Night Shyamalan's third film, Signs, brought him deep into the science fiction genre with crop circles and an alien invasion from the perspective of one family in a farmhouse. Pretty much everyone agrees that Shyamalan's movies went off a cliff in the 2000s, but is Signs still part of his golden era? Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
I come in peace.
This is a science fiction movie podcast, and today we're talking about a movie where they maybe don't come in peace. We'll talk today about Signs, which is the M. Night Shyamalan film, and this was a vote winner on our Patreon. We had a few different 2000s movies. They may have all been alien-related movies, but the winner was Signs, and that is what we're going to do. So we'll start spoiler-free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get to the spoilers, and if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, hit the like button. Helps out a bunch if you do. And of course, you can support everything over at Patreon and help keep the show coming, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So, I guess first things first. David, had you seen Signs before?
I feel like yes, but it has been so long that I had the basic plot beats in my head and nothing in terms of details.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely saw it a bunch over the years, a lot back in the day. Sixth Sense was such a big deal when it came out. Unbreakable was one that I saw and liked at the time, and then a few years later fell in love with. It was one where, like, when I saw it at like 11 or 12, whatever age I was, it was like, oh, this is a bit weird. I don't know if I quite get what this is. But I definitely remember by the time I was finishing school, I was already kind of like preaching the gospel of Unbreakable and how great a movie it was. Like, my taste in film and how I looked at film had changed so much, you know, as you'd expect, in that period of going from 11 to about 17, right? There's a lot of evolving going on in that period. So my opinion on that changed quite a bit over those years, and it's one of my favorite movies now. Signs, of course, was the third film from M. Night Shyamalan. This is what came next in 2002, and as the poster kind of clearly suggests, it is an alien movie where crop circles are a big part of the visuals and the plot, and Mel Gibson stars in this one, about a family who lives kind of in a farmhouse. There's a bit more to it than that, of course, but we'll get into everything else once we get into spoilers and whatnot, but that's the basic gist of it. But yeah, no, I definitely, I don't know, I don't think I was quite at go to the movies to see everything like this yet, so I don't know if I saw it in theaters. I don't think I did, but it was definitely like, as soon as it hit the movie channels, I was definitely watching it.
Okay. Yeah, no, it was years and years after the fact for me. I don't know when that would have put it at. Probably, I feel like my biggest like push for just get a whole bunch of movies was somewhere in like 2011, 2012 range. So I probably saw it around there, and I don't think I've seen it since.
Yeah, that's fair. I also remember, because this movie is one of the movies that's heavily parodied in, I think, the third Scary Movie. So I remember that coming up quite a bit again just a year or two later when that came out, and that was definitely when I was still in school. So I was definitely very familiar with the movie by the time that came out. So, but yeah, so we'll get into our feelings and whatnot. But obviously there'll be a lot of stuff to talk about. I don't know if we've done a Shyamalan film together before.
Me and you know, I have homework at the end of episodes. I tried to find another one to do as homework. I couldn't. I don't know if that means that you haven't done a Shyamalan film at all, and like maybe I'm just forgetting that I talked about it before, but I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've done a couple with Tim, because some of his movies do lean more into the horror realm, and we've done some over there. There's definitely some other ones, though, that will eventually be collector's cut material for our other show. Yeah?
When are we getting to The Happening?
I think that arguably is an Ace episode. Technically, it could be an X-Reels episode if we're being very honest.
Right.
Yes, X-Reels, the Patreon show we do once a month, everyone, where we do really bad movies. So keep that in mind. And obviously, there's some other stuff like I've never seen After Earth, which is obviously a sci-fi
I forgot
movie.
That was him.
Yeah,
I completely spaced on that one.
That may be in our future at some point. I'm sorry to say, but
oh no.
But this was in a period where people still liked his movies, generally speaking. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Some people immediately after Sixth Sense thought everything he did wasn't very good. They're wrong, because Unbreakable's his best movie. But some people felt that way at the time. But for the most part, it was still very widely kind of anticipated and accepted that, hey, people are interested in the next M. Night Shyamalan movie. It's really that, like, it kind of degraded a bit more with each movie, because after this you got The Village, and that got liked to a certain extent, but definitely there was more discerning voices. And then Lady in the Water's the one where a lot of minds really started to change. And then The Happening hit, and that was like, oh no, what is this thing? How did this
just
guy...
just in case there were any stragglers, he hit that right afterwards with The Last Airbender. So
yes, which I've also never seen, but I hear nothing but horrible things about.
I have seen that one, and as someone who kind of grew up on the original show, look how they murdered my boy.
How young are you? I feel like that show was when I was old already.
I was in, like, I don't know, preteen era, give or take. I was the target demographic.
Right, okay. Yeah. It was probably, I mean, if the movie was made in like 2010, 2011, then it was probably on when I was actually still in school and I just didn't know about it, but still.
Yeah.
Because it was something that I kind of missed, I just assumed, oh, that's something the youth's into. I'm already an adult. I'm not into this.
Get out of here, old man. You don't know about our airbending.
Yes. Anyway, let's see how we feel about it and we can go from there. So, David, what did you think of Signs?
That's a loaded question, Pete, because honestly, I watched this last night. It's been a good almost 24 hours now, and I'm still not entirely sure. I think this movie is well done in a certain sense. I think that there are aspects to it that are very, like, cinematically well done. I think the writing is probably a little bit heavy-handed. I think by the time we got to the end of the movie, I was like, okay, this could have been like a cool thing to get to if I didn't feel like I already got it 15 minutes into the movie. And then this is going to be the strangest comparison I think I've ever made. There are certain, like, shots of this movie. There are certain times where I swear to God, it's just missing a laugh track. Like, it's playing for absurdism for some of this movie. And I feel like I'm supposed to be taking it seriously. I'm supposed to be taking it as, oh no, look how this family is, like, suffering through these things. But, like, I genuinely laughed at some of the moments that I felt like I was supposed to be taking seriously. Some of them felt like Wes Anderson, like, just complete asides of strange little things happening. And then, oh, okay, now we're back to the movie again. So all of that, I do want to have a bit more of an involved discussion on, I think that from the viewpoint of when this movie came out, this is like the perfect post 9/11 movie. I think that it plays on all of those ideas of, like, fear and, like, just trying to live with that. I think it's fantastic in that realm. But looking back on it now, it's a weird one. And I'm not sure if I come out of it of like I enjoyed my time, but I don't think I was enjoying it for the reasons that I was supposed to.
I think I would fight you on you saying you're supposed to be taking certain things seriously, you're finding them funny. I think there's a lot of intentional comedy in this.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Very, very consistently unintentional or intentional comedy, I mean to say. Okay. I think that's there throughout. I really like Signs. I think Signs is a great movie, and there's definitely some hokier quality elements, and, like, I suppose Wes Anderson-esque, like, moment here or there is maybe a good way of describing it. The one that comes to mind for me is, like, the military guy when Joaquin Phoenix is in, like, the recruitment office in town. Yeah. And everything, the way he delivers every line of dialogue, every line that comes out of his mouth just feels kind of quirky in a way that feels strange, but it feels intentional. It doesn't feel like, I don't think Shyamalan's sitting there going, oh, this is so natural. I mean, this is a natural performance I'm getting out of this guy. It feels very intentional. And I think, to me, this movie, and if anything, I feel more solid in this opinion now that we've it's been 2+ decades since, which, by the way, shoot me now, I'm clearly almost dead. But the fact
25 years, Pete.
It's been almost 25 years, right? 24 years this year. and having watched like Shyamalan go down off a cliff in terms of his reputation, but then kind of climb back up a little bit again, and like kind of find a place where he's making interesting little movies, but are not perfect. They have faults, and this movie I think does have some faults, but he feels like a director who's enjoying directing a movie. Like when I'm watching this and we get to those scenes where there's something quirky, or he's doing something that's more of a horror movie scene because there's noises in the dark and there's some creeping about, or he's composing a shot where it's going to very neatly sort of reveal a thing in the side of the frame and be perfectly kind of like, literally frame something. So we're looking through a window and it's like boxed in and things like that. It's like, it always feels like he's thinking as a director. He's a director's director in a way that I find very earnest, and I'm watching his movie and I'm like, oh, he's having fun, right? For whatever else you can say, I think he's having fun with the way he's making this movie, and I think that comes across. I think if you like movies in a certain way, I think it's impossible not to see some charm in the way he makes some of his movies. Now, I'm not saying that applies to all his movies. There's definitely a rough patch in the middle where everyone seems to agree they're just absolute dog shit, and that's perfectly fair. I've happily not seen most of them. After The Happening, I noped out for a good decade before he came back with some other crap.
What? No.
But no, I think there's good moments in this that are very cinematic. I think the sound design's very good. The music's very good. I think the cinematography is very on point, and I think all comes together very well. And this is going to, this is a weird thing to say, right? I get that obviously Mel Gibson, right? We don't talk about him as a person too fondly and haven't for a long time, but he's kind of good in this movie, and he was a movie star for a reason because he was very good at commanding a screen and always like kind of like grabbing your attention and being the central focus on screen. And I think that's true in here, and also his little comedic beats in this are also quite good.
Yeah, so just to rewind a little bit of, not clarification of what I was saying, but expanding on, you were talking about intentionality, and I think that is where I had my questions at, because I don't argue the point that he knows how to frame a shot. He knows how to get all this, like, pacing wise, everything going on there. I agree. It does feel like a director who's having fun with it. There are very creative moments in this from a cinematic perspective. What I was confused about is watching this back is the idea of those comedic beats, of whether or not it is supposed to be a scary moment. Like, there are certain ones that do feel blatantly comedic. The whole thing with the military guy, yeah, no doubt. That was all supposed to be something that was like a little quirky, a little weird and something like that. But there are other moments where, like, a big reveal's about to happen, and I'm still finding it quirky. I'm still finding it to be a bit weird when I think it's supposed to be a bit more menacing and a bit more like, oh no, here comes the big reveal. And those are the moments that I'm not sure on, because they are frequent in this movie.
I think we'll have to wait till spoilers so you can specifically, as we get to them, you can point out which ones you felt that way with, and I'll give opinions. But the ones that are coming to mind as you're saying that now, like, I think they're still very intentional, and I think it wants to balance a little bit of fun humor with what it's doing. I don't think this movie wants to be a, like, constant tension, nails to the, I don't think it's trying to be that. I think it's trying to be a little more playful. Your friends got taken away in a paddy wagon. Like, moments that, like, absolutely. Yeah.
No, that's clearly an obvious joke. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just other smaller things, tiny little performance things. I'm just like, really? That's what we're doing here? But again, I enjoyed it. I still was having a fun time with it. I just wasn't sure if I was playing ball with it on the same level that Shyamalan wanted to present it as.
I think so. I wouldn't change any of that stuff. I mean, the one thing you said that I do kind of maybe agree with is that, it is a bit heavy-handed with the themes and what it's trying to get across. And I think some of those moments work well, but some of it is like, you could have toned this down a little bit and let it kind of come out a bit more natural in the subtext or whatever. But fundamentally, like, I don't like. Maybe part of this just because I've been seeing this movie for 20 plus years now that I'm just so used to those elements that I can't even imagine them being different. But I do think that like all the other elements are so strong from a filmmaking perspective, and how fun scenes are because of the filmmaking, and all the other bits that pieces go into it, that I find myself not being that bothered by the heavy-handedness of it. Now, admittedly, if a new movie came out and it was as heavy-handed as this, I'd probably would be criticizing some of those elements a bit more.
Right.
But I kind of find myself like going, oh, this is very earnest, in a way that a lot of modern movies are so terrified of being earnest. Everyone has to be quirky and like pointing out how ridiculous this is, and being kind of almost meta with the self kind of like deprecating humor. Yeah, referential humor, yeah. All that stuff, right? And yeah, sure, like Graham, Mel Gibson's character in this, does say a couple of times this is ridiculous, but it makes sense because he's looking at how everyone else is acting, and he's saying this is ridiculous how everyone else is acting, and he's trying to play everything a bit more straight. So I think that stuff works pretty well, and honestly, in a lot of ways, the earnestness of this probably works even better now, because I am so sick of how a lot of movies would play some of this stuff. And you get to, I think, like the characters a bit more, because they do have a few like more comedic little cute moments, or whether it's the kids or the uncle character played by Joaquin Phoenix, we've not mentioned him yet, who's kind of the co-lead, I suppose, if you will, of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I like the kids from the viewpoint of what they're doing in the story. I will say, and I know that you and I just have a fundamental difference in enjoyment of this trope. Rory Culkin is absolutely the kid that is really smart for his age and is like able to like be emotionally mature on a level beyond everyone else. And I'm just, oh my God, some of the kid monologues that kid goes on, I'm just like, shut up, just be a kid for like 5 seconds here. God damn it.
I'm okay with that.
I know.
That's never bothered me. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the kid being an asshole as well. I think that's quite funny. It's when kids try to be creepy that I hate. I hate the creepy kid trope. Yeah. I think that's terrible. But
that's fair.
That's
not really present in this movie.
No.
I mean, Abigail Breslin has like a couple of moments, but it's not trying to be creepy. It's just like, weird more than anything else.
She's just kind of innocent and doesn't know what she's saying is weird. It's never played as anything else than that. Which is kind of the wild thing here, is that the kids here are Rory Culkin, who is obviously one of the Culkins, notably went on to be in Scream 4, and he's still constantly working, but I've not seen anything else he's done since then. Apparently he played the younger version of Macaulay Culkin in Richie Rich. That's like his earliest claim to fame.
All right. Fair enough.
Well, it makes sense. He's much younger than his brother, so.
Yeah. No, I mean, if he was hanging around on set, it's like, oh, we need a younger shot. Hey, kid.
Yeah, I mean, not to be confused with the other Culkin who's in like Succession and other stuff.
Kieran Culkin.
That's Kieran Culkin. Yeah, I get the Kieran and the Rory Culkins mixed up.
See, I the moment that I saw Culkin pop up in the like credits, I'm like, oh, okay, that's not Kieran, that's not Macaulay, this is the third Culkin. And I was thinking to myself, like, I wonder if I'm gonna recognize him. And then the moment I saw the blonde hair and like slightly sunken in eyes, I'm like, yep, that's a Culkin. There he is.
You can tell they're all related. They absolutely look like one another. And then Abigail Breslin, who is Bo, the daughter, she went on to be in Scream Queens. Some people will know her from the Zombieland movies, and a few other things here or there. But yeah, so.
She was in, what was the name of that Western movie that got like tons of stuff? I can't remember what it was called. I could have sworn she was in like a Western movie that got like a huge amount of awards and stuff like that. I might be thinking of someone else though.
Are you thinking of True Grit? Because that's not her. That's
oh, maybe. Yeah.
What's her face? Haley Steinfeld.
Yep, that's what I was thinking of. Never mind.
Okay, good. Speaking of Westerns, there is another actor in this that surprised me, that popped up, that I did not know was in this movie, because I didn't really know them the last time I watched this, I presume. The teenage girl who works at the pharmacy, right? Who's in like one scene. That is Merritt Weaver, who went on to be in the limited series Godless on Netflix, and she was in Severance Season 2 most recently. but she's an actor that I've been seeing pop up in her 30s or whatever age she is, maybe even her 40s by now. But that's who that is. I like when she showed up, I'm like, holy shit, it's young Merritt Weaver. I did not know she was in this.
That's fair. I haven't got the Severance season 2 yet, so was just a face to me.
She's the wife of one of the characters you already know.
Gotcha.
Which is not a spoiler. I'm not spoiling anything. It's not like a reveal. Yeah. She's there. I suppose the other notable character that pops up is the sheriff character, who's played by Cherry Jones. Well, actually, it just says officer. I think she's the sheriff, but it's the same difference.
Yeah. Whoever she is there, yeah.
Yeah. But that's kind of your main cast, other than, of course, M. Night Shyamalan and his most important role yet in one of his own movies.
Look, this is... I can't get into it too deeply because of spoiler stuff.
Yes.
But that was one of the things. That was one of the things where if I didn't know it was Shyamalan, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. I think it would have been a fine enough moment on its own. But because I knew it was him, and because of how much of an impact he has on not just the arc as a whole, but also the specific scene that he is in terms of forwarding the story, I'm like, okay, so this man just gave himself all the most important stuff and decided to hang around.
It's like I say, it's definitely like, because he had a cameo in Unbreakable and Sixth Sense as well, and he's got lines in both of those, but they're, I think in Sixth Sense, I want to say he plays like a doctor who just sort of gives an update about the kid's condition in like one scene. And then in Unbreakable, he's like someone visiting the stadium that Bruce Willis works at, and he gets patted down kind of thing. But it's relatively quite, like, they're small enough that, like, oh, that's an okay cameo. It doesn't feel like he's putting himself front and center or anything like that.
Not a named character, not someone who's going to have to register with the SAG or something.
Yeah. Here, though, he does give himself a more important role. It's not a ton of screen time. It's not that much more screen time than those other characters, but it is a bit more important because of what the character's tied to. And like you say, the one scene where he gets to actually speak is got a lot of heavy stuff in it. So
it's like the turning point of the movie, all because of him.
So yeah, I almost like the idea that he didn't intend this to be him. He just wrote the movie, and then at the last minute went, wait a minute, who am I going to cameo as? I forgot to write myself a cameo. Oh no, I'll take that one.
Yeah, that was just like literally the last 2 days of filming was this. And he's like, wait a minute, I was supposed to cameo as the shop owner, but I forgot. Guess I'm here now. Yeah,
so he's there. Yeah, no, I think this movie's still a lot of fun. I think it's not taking itself too seriously in a way that kind of makes it a little bit more endearing, but it's it's still doing some pretty solid stuff with the build, the tension, and all the other things. So no, I think Science holds up. I think for most people who probably liked it back then, it probably still holds up now by and large. So yeah, I think
that's fair.
I think Village is the one where it really started to get a bit more divisive, and people really started to get a bit more vocally against Shyamalan's shtick.
That's fair. I will say, without spoiling too much of anything, I'm okay with the ending. I have some faults with it of like certain pacing regarding that. However, I watched this with my wife, and she never pays attention to these movies. And for some reason, this one, it grabbed her. She was watching. She was into it. She was like asking questions about the plot, and it got to the ending, and she hated it. She hated this ending.
Interesting. I think I like the ending, at least on like a character arc and an emotional level. I like the ending and how it kind of wraps up. But if there's critiques about kind of like the plot events unfolding and stuff at the end, I could see why some people have problems with that. So.
Yeah, you got to be okay with the fact that in terms of the larger event at play, we're not following the most important characters.
Oh yeah,
we're following,
which is actually
tangential.
Maybe my favorite thing about the whole movie is like there's an alien invasion going on, but we're not following. This is not Independence Day. We're not following the military and the leaders making decisions about how to fight back. We're following this one family in their farmhouse and how they're going to try and just wait it out. I like that part. And that's kind of what ties into you were saying about how this feels like a post 9/11 movie. Is they're seeing stuff on TV. They're feeling a sense of fear. There's reactions. There's conspiracy theories. There's all this stuff going on.
Yeah, no, I as soon as I saw 2002, I was like, okay, so it's a post 9/11 film, fair enough. It probably filmed or at least was in pre-production before that, which is all the more incredible of how much like
Yeah.
the grainy video footage, the being glued to the TV 24/7.
That's a good point. Is that there's almost no way this was written after 9/11. No way, because 9/11 is obviously September of that year. This came out. Well, I don't know what time of year it was, but even if it was towards the end of the year, it's a major movie. There is no way it was not written before those events.
It was summer, so late summer. So yeah, it would only had a 9-month turnaround. There's no way.
No way. It was probably already filmed by then.
Yep.
So interesting. Or maybe they were filming during. That might even be. I don't know if there's like a story about that and like one of the like behind the scenes stuff of like, hey, we were literally on set that day and then heard it over the news, kind of thing.
Could have been, but no. It's just again the tone of it. Exactly what I remember back then of just that 24-hour news cycle. Everyone just waiting for updates and like again just the atmosphere of fear. The idea of we don't know what's going to happen next, but we all are just sitting around waiting for it. And that's the bit that really resonated.
What that says to me is that obviously this wasn't written in reaction to those events, but what it says to me is that Shyamalan wrote an alien invasion movie and he tried to write it in the perspective of, I'm doing this in at the time, modern day, where we have 24-hour news cycles, so how does this invasion play out from the perspective of a regular family with access to this kind of like constant stream of information coming at them? And effectively, he just nailed it. He nailed the idea of like what happens when something big happens and we're all kind of reacting to it. That's what that says to me. Is that's why it feels so in tune with that time, is because he just kind of got it right.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think as much as I can critique the individual character reacting like from a quirkiness angle in terms of the idea of reacting to the event, that feels very solid. I think that each of the characters, because you have like, Joaquin Phoenix's character gets very wrapped up in it. He's very much glued to TV. Mel Gibson is just trying to avoid it, trying to live a normal life. The kids, it seems like they have a grasp on it, but they're not quite treating it as seriously as the adults are taking it. Like it is this slightly too big for them to understand. And all of that is just exact mirrors of probably real world stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I won't say too much about the alien stuff itself, but yeah, there's some solid alien hijinks going on and signs, and we'll get into that in the spoilers. But I do like how some of that stuff is represented. So yeah, I mean, I think obviously most people will probably know the movie, so there's probably not too much point in try to belabor the spoiler-free section too much. So I think it's probably time to say spoilers from this point on, and we'll get into signs. So you've been warned. All right. So I feel like every time this movie comes up and I hear people talk about it, there's always a snooty remark from someone about their weakness being war and saying, aren't they idiots for coming to our planet if they don't like war? And I think that is the most asinine, stupid, zero brain cell response to this plot. And I'll tell you why. So sending people into mines for stuff isn't super dangerous, and yet we did it anyway because people wanted the resources that were down there that would benefit us. That human beings have literally put themselves in danger and killed each other for hundreds, thousands of years, regardless of the danger, for profits. And you're telling me you think that the aliens coming to our land masses looking for resources, they should have said, no, there's oceans in the other parts of the planet. I mean, they're staying away from those.
Oh yeah, no. Look, I get the snooty remarks. I understand where they come from, but I do think that just comes from a kind of an inability / not wanting to engage with the story on the level that like it's trying to tell it, like, yeah, this what were we supposed to say? Oh, the aliens are actually like apples, we have to throw apples at them. Like, no matter what you say, it's going to tell the story. It's going to be something that feels contrived because it's something that is on Earth.
Yeah, it's like, okay, sure, you're saying, okay, you want them to go to Mars? Well, maybe Mars doesn't have all the other resources they want to steal, which is clearly the point of them coming here.
I was going to say, end of the movie, I'm pretty sure what I picked up on from like the news reports in the background was the whole thing was they were like kidnapping people. Like they were taking people away. And yeah, if you're looking for humans, guess what? There's only one place that's got it.
That's true. There's only one place you can go and find them, as far as we know.
Yep.
Far as we know.
Yeah, Star Trek has anything to say about it. Might be a few other places out there.
Well, humanoids, maybe, but no humans. So yeah, it's something that always comes up, and I'm like, I can see critiques of the over heavy-handedness of some of the setup for the reveals and stuff, and we'll get to all that when we get to it. But I think that particular complaint always rubs me the wrong way, because I'm like, all we do is put people in dangerous situations. You know, we send them into places where we can't breathe for the sake of exploration, for the sake of, you know, discovery, and often profit and resources. And so I don't know, that complaint is never tracked with me in any way, shape, or form.
No, I mean, it's a fun thing to throw out there, especially post Shyamalan after his dip of like bad movies, where you just say like, boy, we should have seen the writing on the wall. But it's a non-issue for the most part, and it's not something that the movie itself cares about, and because of that, it's not something that feels like we should care about either. Yeah.
So anyway, so the whole story here, I mean, the movie opens with a shot looking out the window at the yard in front of the house, and we see the crop field and all that, and it frames it in the window frame, and I'm only pointing this out because it actually starts the final shot at the end with this same framing. So I think it's important to point out the book ending of that. But you know, camera sits on a family photo. You see the wife with the family, and then Mel Gibson wakes up into frame, looking quite panicked. You know, hearing a scream or whatever outside.
Had a bad dream.
And it's like, okay, you've already established visually without a single word being spoken, there was the family, but things don't seem as happy as that photo. Something's already amiss.
Well, the very next shot is him waking up alone in bed instead of with a wife, and it's like, okay, well, what happened to the wife?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and there's a whole thing with like the kids are outside screaming, and you know, like him and the uncle, Joaquin Phoenix's character Merrill, they run out trying to find him, and that leads to a reveal of the crop circle, which is kind of the big money shot to set up the start of the movie.
Yeah, there is one tiny little shot where, you know, he looks outside the window and then he doesn't see anything, and I think that's before we get the scream. But then he goes to brush his teeth, and there's one shot where you can see like the outline of a cross on the wall, but the cross itself isn't there. And again, that goes back to what you said. The director's just good with their craft. They know how to frame a shot to deliver information in a subtle way.
Yeah, no, and then again, this is a shot that's mirrored at the end as well. But you know, he kind of pops his head out when he's brushing his teeth when he hears the scream, and there's like a fun playfulness to it. I love how silent, I mean, other than the scream, but there's no dialogue. It's all just kind of like visually reacting to stuff and framing, and kind of there's a sense of pacing to it. Like, I remember when Shyamalan was sort of like starting to like have these first couple of big movies, and people were saying, oh, he's kind of like Hitchcockian, and I think that gets thrown around far too easy, and there's so much weight with saying that I think it's kind of it's almost a detriment and kind of like a hurdle to get over. Right. But I do think there is something inherently cinematic and old school about just visually telling the start of the story without any words being spoken, and it's just kind of the simple search for who's screaming. And you know, they go in to find the kids, and you know, it sets up for some further things where Rory Culkin, Morgan's looking out at the crop circle, and he's like, I think God did it, and he's like, did what? And then he looks over and he walks out and sees and we get the big aerial shot looking down at the series of circles, making a big sort of trident looking design.
Yeah, it's basically just a big old park here sign, as we find out later. But
yeah, I think that's like an interesting little detail later on, actually, is that the crop circles all over the world are like them basically setting up a map. It's like their navigation kind of system. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting, I suppose, a way of framing it.
I like to imagine that like they wanted to set them up at intermittent distances, like around the globe, like all equally spaced, and then there's like 3 of them that were right over the Pacific Ocean. Like, what are we supposed to do with this? There's nothing here.
But you know, there's obviously a drip feed of information early on here. Initially, it's like, okay, who did this? Was this these like troublesome teenagers that we know about who are like in the kind of the county? And no, they were busy. They were at the movies or whatever. So it's like, okay, well, who did this? Could a machine have done this? It doesn't seem right. By hand? That would, it's too perfect for that.
Forever.
So it's like, okay, all right, we're setting up the mystery and we're getting some of these ideas put in there. And there's a few other little things to set up here, like the dog acting out of whack and getting a bit aggressive, which leads to, because they actually set up Chekhov's barbecue fork, because Morgan's actually flipping some meat with the barbecue fork. And then we hear the dog growling, we cut to the adults having their conversation, and then when we come back to them, we do the whole thing where like the dog's already dead and stabbed with the barbecue fork.
Yeah, because it was going to go after the younger sister.
Yeah.
I will say that's entirely just my own personal thing. When they're talking about the kids, I would say Bo has always been a masculine name for me. I always think of that as a boy's name. Morgan can go either way, but because it's Morgan and Bo, I always think that Rory Culkin's name is Bo, and then Abigail Breslin is Morgan.
Yeah, I have never heard of anyone called Bo in my life, so I did not have this pre-association with gender.
Fair enough. I mean, I've never met anyone named Bo, but just from like, TV stuff that's like more down south, it's like, yeah, and over here's Bo.
Yeah. Oh, this is in your neck of the woods, technically. This is Pennsylvania.
It is. Yeah, it's a couple hours away. I could not tell you where, but apparently it's 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia, according to the movie, so...
Well, a lot of Shyamalan films are set in Philadelphia because he's a Philadelphia local.
Yeah.
So, fun. I just love that he's like, okay, I'm doing a movie that's going to be set in a farm in a sort of like, rural area, so I can't set it in Philadelphia again because his last two movies were set in Philadelphia. He's like, I'll just say it's 45 minutes outside of Philadelphia. It's close to Philadelphia. I don't want to be too far away from home.
And then when I have to get in the car and drive for a later scene, I'm going to Philadelphia.
Now, he says the lake, to be fair.
Oh, that's true. Yep.
He says the lake, which I don't know which lake's nearby, but I'm sure there's one on the map you could point
Beats
to.
me. I mean, it's a real place. I could just look up Bucks County Lake. There's a few. Lake Nakamixon. Sure.
Fair enough.
I
I wasn't even sure Bucks County would be a real place. I just thought, maybe the specific place is... Kind of like how Smallville's in Kansas, but there's no Smallville.
Yep, no, Bucks County is real.
All right, fair enough. So, I like a lot of the framing just even during some of the conversations early on, like when he's talking to the officer, and like he'll set a step sort of in the foreground into sort of close shot where he's kind of intensely in the audience's face, and we're kind of watching the minute like facial expressions. And there's the moment at the end of that scene where he's like, "Oh, I can't hear my children," and that sort of leads us to them going back and looking for them. It's weird that they're so quiet. What's going on? So I think it does a good job of like doing these little moments of tension, but it also has the moments of the more comedic stuff, like. There's the second night, right, when Mel Gibson sees something on the roof, right, and he's like, "Wake up, hey Meryl, wake up! The brothers are back. We need to go and get them." And this is played very much for laughs, where Meryl's like, "Hey, let's just run out screaming and cursing, and we'll scare them, and we'll catch them on the other side.
Act like we're murderous. We're gonna kill them when we get them."
So there's a lot of setup to it where Gibson's like, "Oh, I don't sound convincing when I'm cursing." He's like, "Well, just act crazy then." "What do you mean act crazy?" And it ends up being him running around the side of the house going, "I'm totally insane. I've completely lost my mind."
I appreciate the fact of Mel Gibson, of all people, saying, "How do I act crazy?"
Hey, that just shows that he was an actor, because he's convincing here, even though we know what we know.
He is. Yeah, no, and like this sequence... this is, again, a moment where I can tell it's supposed to be a joke. It's supposed to be something of him just saying some stuff that is totally non-threatening as he's running around the house. And then it is immediately followed by what feels to be more of a moment of tension. And I can differentiate the two here. It feels like there's a clean enough split because they show the creature, the being, whoever it is, up on the roof. Yeah, they say like, "Oh, it's at that point." It's
basically the idea that you've created some humor, so you've lightened the tone. And I love the moment at the end of that, actually, where when they meet each other in the middle again, he's like, "I cursed," and he's like, "I know, I heard." It's almost like he wants a pat in the head from his little brother. I thought that was just like an amusing little touch. But you've created this lighter tone, and then you interrupt it with the tense thing, right? So it's almost cutting through it in a way where it's like, oh, you got too comfortable. Here's the scary part. And then that leads to obviously running into the crop fields and, dropping the torches, the flashlights and whatnot. So, it sets things up quite well. And there's a lot of setup here. And this leads to the officers over again the next day and is asking questions. And she's interacting with the kids as well. And they're doing all that stuff. But they set up the whole glass of water thing with Bo, which we'll talk a bit more later when it comes back into proper focus. But it's like, okay, so far I've got it's very dark in my police report. And then just both Gibson and Phoenix just sitting there kind of like with just, deer in the headlights. It was very dark. It's like, well, was it a tall person? A short person? And I love when it comes back round though, when she asks another question like 30 seconds later and Phoenix just immediately goes, it was very dark. Like, I don't know. It's very well paced from a comedy point of view.
Yeah, no, like, I don't know. For me, I think that this is very well written in terms of seeing it on the page. Like, seeing it written out, I think I would have really, really liked it. Here, I still got a chuckle out of it, but something about the deliveries was just not hitting me in terms of, like, peak comedy. Like, I feel like it really could have worked, but I was almost... Maybe it's just because of my already carried over assumptions regarding Joaquin Phoenix, but, like, if this had been, like, a bit more of a creative, or not a creative, a comedy actor, more than, like, a serious, like, doing serious roles kind of actor, I might have gotten more of a laugh out of it.
Well, it's funny you say that, because obviously when I first saw this was the first thing I ever saw him in.
Yeah.
I never, like, I didn't know. I mean, he had been in Gladiator, but I don't think I'd seen Gladiator yet. Also
not a very comedic role.
No. But my point is, though, is that his whole reputation of only doing these serious, more, like, Oscar-worthy art house type movies and everything else he's been doing for the last 20 years, he didn't really have that reputation yet. So this didn't. Whereas looking back now, this character feels notably distinct from most of the types of roles he tends to take. It feels a bit more kind of normal. But I kind of almost like that in a way, though, because it feels kind of awkward in a way that it feels kind of nice.
No, the awkwardness definitely comes through. All the rest of the movie, all the rest of his, like, getting sucked into it and all that, it works for me. It's doing a good job because of him starting out as more straight-laced and non-weird, because it makes that jarring cut over. But during these opening bits, especially when he's doing comedic lines, like, I don't know, it's something about it. It's just not quite landing for me.
Sure, that's fair. I mean, he's obviously doing a bit of a jock thing here. His backstory is that he was a baseball player and he was quite successful in the sort of local minor league type way. And when the officer says, hey, like, was it a man or a woman? And he's like, oh, like, it had to be a guy because, no, I've never seen a woman, like, run that fast. And she's like, hey, have you been watching the Olympics? They've got, like, Swedish women who can run that fast. And he's like, well, they also jumped onto the roof really quick. And she's like, oh, well, there's high jumping.
We have high jumpers, we have pole vaulters, and he immediately shoots it down. It's just like, well, I don't think it was a Scandinavian pole vaulter.
Which he's definitely a little bit condescending the way he says it, but he's also got a point that the chances of it being someone that specific are also pretty unlikely.
Yeah, and she tries to move on the conversation. She's like, all right, are there any members of, like, the church after you left that would have had a problem? And when they say no, he's in, like, I apologize for the Scandinavian pole vaulter line. That was out of line.
Yeah, I appreciated that wrap up to it. So, yeah, but I would just to stick with him for a little minute, because we can just sort of talk about his characters, because his whole thing is that he is kind of, he's like a nice uncle. He looks after the kids with his brother, but we find out that he moved in after the wife died, and that's, he's sort of moved in to help, and that's kind of, he stays above the garage, and that's his whole thing. But he is a bit of a jock, right? He is a little bit dismissive, and when the kids are starting to get into it, particularly Morgan, the boy, he starts, like, talking about what he's seen on TV, what he's hearing about things, and so on. Meryl's like, oh, these are just a bunch of nerds who are making up a bunch of fake science to feel special because they couldn't get girlfriends, which does lead to one of my favorite lines of the movie, actually, which is Bo just cutting in, like, a minute later, why can't they get girlfriends, is a really funny line. but like, you know, he's dead set against it. He's mocking it. He's openly kind of like almost like not even, he's dismissive's the right word. I was going to say confrontational. He's not confrontational. He's just dismissive of it. But of course, that's why it's so funny that when this more and more stuff starts appearing on TV and he's like freaking out, because there's that moment where after they've been watching TV again for a bit, where Mel Gibson wakes up and he's in the closet with the TV. He's like, oh, you were right. The kids were getting obsessed watching it from 5 a.m. But the joke is he's clearly obsessed, glued to the TV screen, watching every little update, talking about birds flying into invisible walls and whatever else.
He's pointing at the CRT and he's like, there, it fell down right there. I've been watching it nonstop. And everyone's like, okay, my guy, I think it's time to step out. Let's go for a walk.
And that's before, of course, he literally puts on a tinfoil hat. So
yeah,
that's the capper
the
of
only
it.
other thing. The only other thing in the middle of all that was when they go into town, he visits like some army military recruiter or something like that. And I couldn't tell if he was going there to specifically be like, you know, I'm aimless in life. I want to join the military to give my life some purpose or something like that. Or if he was just browsing, if he was just like, yeah, what's going on? How's it going?
I think it's maybe a bit of a mix of it too. I think you can also maybe argue that, like, because by this point they've seen at least the first thing on TV about all the crop circles happening all over the world, and there's lights in the sky over. Actually, no, the lights come later. At this point, it's just the crop circles. Maybe it's this idea of he needs a sense of direction, and maybe if there's something stirring up, maybe I should go and see about you know, have a look at some leaflets, and that's about
Which again, mirroring the 9/11 idea, mirroring the stuff of after that happened, there was a huge enlistment drive.
Yeah, but we get this quirky like major or whatever the character is, where he's just sitting there and like he's delivering lines like he's in like a. It's funny actually because later on in the movie, Joaquin Phoenix has a line where he says it's like War of the Worlds, and it's an okay reference because it feels like he's referencing a really old movie, and that always I think fits better than something that's only a couple of years old. But this army character feels like the sort of military character who would be in a 1950s sci-fi movie. He feels like he's out of a different era of film in a fun way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's one of the weirder characters, not just because of his like general demeanor. Like he's not just sitting there of like acting weird, but he's also just like, I don't know. It's something about the fact of he recognizes Meryl, and then we go into the full backstory, along with some random like juvenile delinquent guy in the background who also knows all the whole history.
I don't think that's random. I think this is the first time I've ever clocked this. I think that's the guy they thought was making the crop circle at their farm earlier on.
Ah.
Because I think because they say his name Lawrence or something like that, because it was Lawrence and the something brothers, I think, when they were talking about them earlier. So I think this is actually the troublemaker they thought might have been up to stuff like earlier.
All right, I mean, fair enough. That strikes me as deleted scene. That strikes me as we should have seen this guy's face beforehand, so when we see him again here, it's like, oh, that guy again.
Honestly, the way that they talk about those like troublemakers early on, it makes me think, there was at least one scene cut where we get to see them being questioned or something. But but he, because the delinquent chimes in and is like, oh yeah, he's got all those records for hitting fastballs and whatever, but he's also got the most strikeouts of any player ever. He's the worst.
Which, I mean, again, going on the heavy-handedness, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler, especially in spoiler section.
Or in spoilers, you go for it.
All of this is just setting up for the end. Every single thing is just saying, okay, we need to, at the end, he's gonna need to swing his bat a whole lot. And so we're setting it up here that he was great at baseball, he took his swings, but he swung at everything, no matter how bad of a missed pitch it was. He was swinging no matter what. And he says it just felt wrong not to swing. And it's all just character setup for when we get to the end.
Yeah, I do like that line though. It felt wrong not to swing. There's something almost like poignant about that line of dialogue. It felt wrong not to swing. I think that the key detail they mention here that is really set up though is that he mentions that the bat that he won that big game with or broke the record with, he's got on the wall at home, and I'm like, there you go. That's the detail that is important for later. So yeah, I mean, I think he's a fun character because he's the other adult, but he kind of is the one that gets sucked into everything after dismissing it so heavily. So he's kind of like a conduit for the audience of like letting yourself get carried away with the movie a little bit. It's like, hey, you're kind of, because Mel Gibson, as much as he's maybe arguably the more sensible one, I think because you're watching a movie, you inherently want to go along for the ride a bit more than he does.
Right.
So you kind of like maybe get mirrored a bit more through Meryl. So
I think the audience is pretty equally split. And not even saying like different people. I'm saying like an individual where you, as a rational individual, you want to like poke holes in these things. You want the movie to be self-consistent. And so you're going to come down on the Mel Gibson side of, oh, well, this is insane. Like, there's no way to believe this. But then you also want to believe in the fantastical. You want the movie to do something big. And that's where you come down on his side of switching over and getting into this. Oh, look at how insane this thing happened. And then, we don't have to get to it immediately, but I think that his watching the TV during the moment where we first like really see the alien is kind of like the big turning point of, no, this is happening. This isn't something that could just be written off anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of obviously builds to that. I think by the time birds are flying into an invisible wall, I'd be pretty convinced there's something going on. But once you get to like, oh, here's some footage from a Brazilian birthday party where something was caught on film. I want to say here at this point here, the 4K transfer of this looks really good.
Okay.
I was watching. It sounds great as well. The mix. I mean, the 5.1 mix was probably always good though, because it was already made in the era where that was normal. But like, I mean, the contrast between like the light outside going through the windows and inside the farmhouse was great. But the reason why this moment you're talking about made me think of it is because I was noticing, because the whole part of the alien like sort of mythology here is that they can kind of mimic like their surroundings, right? So they kind of blend
camouflage.
in. They've got like a natural camouflage. I was noticing like things on their skin that was trying to mimic like and like sort of like become their surroundings that I had never noticed before on this viewing, because the image quality was so good. I was like, oh, it's kind of trying to make Mel Gibson's face there, and it's like kind of not getting it right, but it's like, I don't know, it's really interesting stuff.
No, I agree, because that was I've seen that scene of the Brazilian birthday party and like it crossing across. Now it's already supposed to be like grainy video that's being transferred through a CRT. Like, it's not supposed to be the clearest image for the audience, no matter what. But I will say that when I watched it before, I always thought it was just the alien just walks from right to left. Like, that's it. And I think in this one, it's a lot more clear that it was doing some sort of camouflage with like the bush on the right, and then it came out of the bush and started walking over, and it's just a little bit more visually clear that that's happening. No, just a really nice transfer. This is the first time I've watched, because I bought it in 4K like maybe, I don't know, a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever it was on sale after it went 4K, and it looked really, really nice on this viewing. But no, I mean, obviously there's lots of things that feel really playful, like even more so than the last two movies that Shyamalan did before this, just because he is having a bit of fun. He's having some jokes. He's the whole, oh, we want to record this broadcast because it's really important. And Bo's like, no, that's my recital tape. You can't, like, use that. And he's told to go find another tape. And he's like, hey, Uncle Merrill, I'm using your tape. Close up of the tape. Swimsuit special. I also especially like the fact that he's like, oh, we got to use a tape. And he grabs one. And she's like, no, that's my recital tape. And this is, again, Rory Culkin is just giving a monologue. He's just like, this is the day, like, when we look back, all the history books changed, and you want to record this moment to tell your kids that you were here. And then after he gives like this 30-second long monologue, she's not convinced still. She's just like, but my tape. And he's like, Dad, tell her to let me use the tape. And like, that's one of the few times I felt like, he's a kid and he's just complaining to his dad about this.
Yeah, but I did like the follow-up joke, which is that the newscaster basically repeats the line he just said about this is the day where everything we know in history books is about to change.
Yep. And he's like, I said that. I did that thing.
Yeah.
Just to, I guess, real quick with the other stuff that happened when they went into town was... Well,
actually, before we get to the town, I just want to mention that when they were talking to the officer, that's when Bo comes in and says that everything's playing on the same... Like, all the channels are playing the same thing, and that's when the crop circle stuff comes up. And it's after that, when the sheriff's leaving, where she's like, hey, get your mind off this. Like, your family's been through a lot. Take the kids and your brother out of town. Do some fun family stuff. Do not think about all this stuff going on in the crop circles. Just go and take your minds off of it. And that's why they go into town. And actually, that's one of the moments I really like from a shot perspective is the camera playing back behind him as she drives away, and it's sort of coming into the house, and he's in silhouette. Just, again, really cinematic, just really nailed kind of a feel in the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, they go into town, which actually does lead to one of my other favorite little comedy bits that I've kind of always forget about, is that Morgan clearly likes getting books, right? And he asks his dad for book money, so he goes to the bookstore with his little sister. And he goes in, and the people who own this bookstore are watching the news, right? And it's all about the lights in the sky and all the rest of it. And this old conspiracy nut is like, they're just trying to, this is all a lie, it's all fake. They're just doing this, and they're also trying to sell soda. And you're like, wait, what's he talking about? He's like, 12 commercials. I've seen 12 soda commercials since I started watching this news coverage. And I'm like, and obviously anyone with a sensible brain's like, yeah, because it goes to the ads every so often, and that's just what's been paying for the ads. But the moment that got me is later on when it cuts back to them, and like one comes on, and he just yells out, 13! 13!
And we get like a long hold shot of this woman drinking like Shasta Cola, like, hey.
I don't know. I got a good chuckle out of that. That's, again, much like the military officer guy, this was just kind of like a quirky, like, townsfolk character that just was like, hey, keeping the tone a little bit light. We don't have to be too serious about everything.
Yeah. And then also, I mean, this sequence kind of plays into that idea of fate and like everything happens for a reason, where he comes in specifically asking for a book about aliens, and they're like, no, we don't have anything like that. Oh, wait, hold on. We got one book by mistake, and we were just keeping it around, so it's over on that shelf over there, which of course leads to them finding out things about like, are the aliens hostile? How would they act if they were hostile? All this extra stuff on top. So
yeah. Which obviously it's like, how could anyone have this information, is literally a line that Mel Gibson says later in the movie, but also I think that, and it's like, yeah, how would they know this and this and this? Is a lot of theorizing, I suppose, and not all of it is like, I don't think the tinfoil hats were ever actually, that was never proven to be necessary, I don't think, in the course of the movie.
No, definitely not. That's the thing, like, as much as I say it's heavy-handed, and as much as it does feel like everything in this movie is pushing towards the end, if you do stop and look, there are red herrings. There are things that are just things that happen that don't have that much presence on the plot as a whole. The tinfoil hats being one of them. The idea of like the ships being cloaked in the sky, like that doesn't really come into too much play either. There's tiny things that can be written off there, but for the most part, it feels like everything is just leaning heavily on the end. All of this had to happen. Every Rube Goldberg-esque thing led to this exact ending as it needed to happen.
Yeah, which I think is fun for a movie to an extent, to see how all they all play together. I get that some people don't like how all these different elements come together at the end, but I mean, we'll get there. So the other big thing when they're in town, though, other than Merritt Weaver trying to confess her sins to someone who's not even a priest anymore, and he's just sitting there, and there is the funny follow-up to that, actually, where he sits down with his family at the pizza restaurant, and he's like, I don't want any of you, including his adult brother, I don't want any of you spending time alone with, was it Tracy Abernathy? Is that understood? And I'm like, what did she tell you? What did she do?
Well, that's what I love. She's confessing that she cursed at this guy, and she's like, yeah, in the past week I've cursed 31 times. And she like lists off some curse words, and then she's like, oh, does douchebag count as a word? And he's like, depends on how you used it. She gives an example. He's like, yeah, that counts as a curse. And she's like, oh, in that case, it's 75 times.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, all right.
You used douchebag 40 plus times?
Apparently.
That's not a word you, like, I definitely drop more F-bombs than douchebags, like, easily. Yeah, well, it's not even close.
Well, I mean, she doesn't seem like she curses a lot, so maybe that's just the first one that popped into her mind.
I don't know, 70 in the last couple of weeks sounds like a reasonable amount to me.
However, that cheating douchebag whoever making out with what's her name, I think she's earned it.
That's very true. But they see Shyamalan, right? And the tease is, of course, is that he's the one responsible for the wife's death. Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing?
I know that's the tease. Like, because I know the movie, I know that's the tease. But they don't say anything about who this guy is. And knowing he's the director, it just feels like everyone's like, that's the guy who made this story. He's here.
I mean, I never read it like that, but sure.
No. I know how it was meant to be read. I get it. It's just seeing it being Shyamalan and everyone just like their jaws drop and they all watch him in slow motion. I'm like, what are we doing, guys? Why is this happening?
They're drip feeding up to what happened. Obviously, the mum's not there. It's kind of clear that she probably died, the way people are talking, but they've never actually outright said it. And then this is like, okay, this is a guy that's... And nice touch, actually, later on when you see his place, he's a vet. And that actually is teased earlier on in the movie, because when the dog starts acting up, Mel Gibson says, oh, I'll call Dr. So-and-so. And Morgan's like, he doesn't treat animals. He's like, oh, he'll know what to do. But in hindsight, it's like, oh, he's not calling the vet because the vet's the one person he doesn't want to talk to.
Oh, I didn't even pick up on that. Fair enough.
So, nice little touch. But it's like, okay, they've had their pizza. They're going home, and Morgan is playing with Bo's old baby monitor because he wants a walkie-talkie, basically.
Yeah. Something set up with the police earlier.
Yeah, and basically he hears like a bit of noise, bit of static, and he's talking about. This is when all the conversation about all the scientists who are into this stuff being nerds and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But of course, as like, you know, he's listening to this and they're saying, oh, it's just static, it's nothing. Maybe it's picking up another baby monitor. But as they're getting out and Mel Gibson's holding it, it starts getting louder and there's like an extra little noise. It does sound a little bit interesting, shall we say? Yes. Right? It's not a guarantee that it's something alien, but it sounds a bit more interesting. And it's like, oh, maybe we, you know, the kids yelling, oh, you know, don't let go, like keep holding it up, because the higher you go, the better the signal is. And I'm just going to say, Joaquin Phoenix jumps in and says, no, don't do it, you'll lose the signal. And that's the turning point for him, where he's invested in this noise. He's like, no, I actually want to hear where this goes. That's not, and that's the moment where Mel Gibson looks over at him like, don't encourage, what you do? Don't encourage this. What you doing?
Back when I first got my first cell phone, my parents' house was like in a valley. There was zero cell signal, and it was such a pain in the ass. But I remember doing exactly what this kid does, or just like moving it around the room and like, wait, I got 2 bars. All right, hold it here. Nobody move.
Yeah, but it's a whole thing where, like, you know, he climbs on top of the car and he's holding it up, and it sounds like you can hear 2 things communicating, like two noises.
Sounds, yeah.
And then it cuts off at a certain point. But it's a whole thing where, like, I do love that, like, the girl, Bo, tries to climb up in the car as well, and Graham, the dad, says, no, I don't want you climbing on the car, Bo. But she does it anyway, so he just kind of has to get up himself to hold on to her so she doesn't fall and hurt herself. I was like, that felt like a very realistic kid moment. I don't want you doing this. Completely ignored.
Well, it's also because the big brother's on the car. He's like, he can already see the argument of just like, well, Morgan can do it. Why can't I?
Oh, dear. So this is like, because he's of the opinion right now, no radio, no TV. We're not going to become obsessed with this stuff that's happening. He's trying to sort of keep them away from it. And it's not until that night when he again ends up going out into the cornfield, because the one dog that's remaining is still barking at the cornfield, and he's like, you're going to feel silly when this all turns out to be make-believe. But he goes into the cornfield at night time with the light, and this is where you get your first proper tease of the whole thing, where you see a leg kind of in the cornfield, like moving away when he shines the light on it. It's an effective sequence. I think it looks good.
Yeah. No, I one thing that I will say about this movie, and this stretches all the way up to the end, is barring 2 shots, it feels like they knew that full photorealistic CGI alien was not possible, whether that be on their budget, whether that be how they wanted to do it, whatever it was. And so they pull these tricks to basically do a Jaws, where it's like, we see a tiny little bit here and there, we keep our distance, we keep it obscured, and that sells it so much better. Having just this leg in this shot sells it so much better than if we were to see like the full body and then quick cut, it disappears, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that wasn't just we have to do this to hide the fact that we can't have this much CG that often, or that good CG. I'm going to give him some credit here and say that he probably knew this worked better. And I think that's just based on, I mean, you just said it there, it's kind of like a Jaws. I feel like he's probably a big fan of Jaws. He probably knows it worked that you didn't see much of the shark until the end.
Yeah, probably. I mean, even just the conceit of the movie is just we aren't there yet. Like, we are drip feeding this information. To have it show up as big that quickly here would just be like jumping ahead in the story.
Like, you could show it to the audience in a way the characters haven't seen it, but that would mean that you have too much. Like, it would mean the audience know more than the characters do, so it wouldn't be as exciting when they see it later. By having it only be, we'll see it when they see it, keeps us locked in step with them, so we're kind of like there with the tension and all that. So, it works. But once he has this experience and he comes running back inside, he walks back in and just says, all right, let's turn the TV on. I'm convinced there's something going on. Let's have a look-see. And then by this time, there's lights in the sky and they're all talking about it, and that leads to some of those other...
This is where we get the recorded for future generations and whatever else. But yeah, and then I think the most character development that really happens just in terms of like sitting down and talking is after the kids are asleep, Mel and Joaquin start talking to each other, and he basically lays out his entire worldview at this point after his wife died, which is, are you the type of person that believes that all of this stuff can just be coincidence, that like none of it feeds into a larger plan or idea, or do you think that everything happens for a reason? And Joaquin Phoenix makes a strange little story of how he almost made out with a girl, but she threw up.
He's looking for comfort. Because he basically says, hey, like, I'm kind of freaked out right now. Could you go back to being who you used to be? He's basically saying, hey, back when you were a reverend, you were very, very comforting and tried to offer helpful advice all the time. Can I get a little bit of that right now? And he's like, okay, there's two types of people, and one kind, everything's a coincidence. The other kind, no, this is all kind of got a reason. Everything's by design, and that means that someone's looking out for you, and in the religious sense, God, and that means you don't feel alone. But the people who think it's all coincidence, they don't have that, so they think that no matter what, like, it's 50-50. These lights in the sky could be good, they could be bad. We don't know, but either way, you feel alone because nothing's guiding it. And he's like, so which side are you? Which one are you, Joaquin Phoenix? And that's when he says, I was at this party once. And I love the demeanor, the way he starts this story, where he's got a smirk in his face and it's going to be something stupid, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Because I was at this party once and I was looking at this girl, and he does this little, like, he's like, hey, do you remember her? She was hot, right? And I was going to kiss her, but I had gum in my mouth. So I turned to take out the gum, and when I turned back, she threw up all over herself. If I didn't have that gum in my mouth, she'd have thrown up in my mouth. So clearly, that's not a coincidence.
God was looking out for me.
Divine intervention happened to make sure I didn't get vomit in my mouth. I'm that kind of guy. And then he's like, which one are you? And I actually kind of like the response he initially gives to this. He's like, which one are you, Graham? And he says, are you comforted? He's like, yeah, I'm a little bit. He's like, well, then what does it matter which one I am? And it's like, that already gives you the answer. But then he goes into it and actually just flat out says, like, no, this is all, like, there's no divine purpose. There's no, everything's just chance, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, the very next scene, we start getting drip fed, like, the night of his wife's death.
Yes.
Like, we start getting the bits of, like, him pulling up and the police officers, like, look, something happened here. You're going to want to see this.
Yeah, we don't get the rest of it there, but he does say to his brother, the last thing that my wife ever said was, tell Meryl to swing away. And the only reason why she said that is because she was dying and the neurons in her brain were firing, and she just had a random memory of us at one of your baseball games. It didn't mean anything. And obviously it very literally does mean something when we get to the end.
Right.
But yeah. So he's completely lost his faith. He was literally the person who stands up in front of everyone and tells them about God, and now he's completely lost all faith. And it's an interesting viewing as someone who is an atheist and has pretty much always been an atheist. There is nothing inherently about what he was that I like connect to or relate to. But the story somewhat still works, I think, because it's about someone who's lost their faith and has to regain it, right?
Yeah, So I know you wouldn't have watched this movie, but there was a movie called God's Not Dead, starring Kevin Sorbo.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something fairly mainstream that you thought I might just not have seen. No. You brought up a Kevin Sorbo, like, super Christian made movie.
Yep. But I've never fully seen the movie myself. I've just watched people like reviewing it, going deep dive enough that I feel like I've seen the movie myself. But the thing in that movie is the idea that from a viewpoint of someone who has faith, an atheist is just someone who doesn't like God. Like, the idea is that like they still believe in God, they just hate them. They just hate God for something that's happened in their past or something like that. And obviously it's not the case. An atheist just doesn't believe entirely. It's completely separate from the idea of liking or disliking. But that's kind of the vibe I got from this movie, where they're trying to play up this idea that he has a lack of faith, where it's not that, it's more so the idea of, yeah, he still believes in God. He just believes God's a kid with a magnifying glass at an anthill. Like, it's a cruel and vengeful God sort of thing.
I don't think he believes that the whole movie. I think he gets to a point, like, or at the very least, I think he... Well, okay, I think you could argue that he does believe that the whole time, but I don't think he in any way expresses that. There's one pivotal moment in the third act where he starts saying, I hate you, which maybe reveals that he always still kind of believed he's there. He's just, like... You know, he's been kind of like operating under the illusion of, no, I don't believe in any of this anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what he basically says to his brother here, is that no, there is no one looking out for us. It's not a thing. Whereas later it turns into, you keep doing this to me, I hate you. I hate you. And, you know, so I never get the, like, I have no idea if Shyamalan himself is religious. I have no idea. But this movie to me feels like it's more about just presenting a character with an arc, and this is a neat way of like just clearly getting across the idea of losing faith and regaining it, and it fits into the theme of signs, because, you know, he literally says in this scene, people believe in signs. Now, when you see the poster of the movie, you think the signs are the crop circles, and they are, but it's a double meaning, because he's also talking about these signs.
But what you miss is if you look at it with like a little squinted eyes, it makes the sign of the cross. It's Jesus the whole time.
Har, 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 har. So, I don't know, it's weird, because, like, there's definitely movies that get a bit too churchy for me, and I start critiquing what it's, like, I don't guess, pushing on the audience. Like, it almost, like, you know, if there's a little bit of, like, a churchy propaganda element to some things. I don't think I feel that when I watch this.
No, for me, it just feels like the idea of the church and his separation from it is just symbolic of grief. Like, it could have been anything. It could have been his, you know, presence in the PTA or something like that. Like, no matter what it was just symbolic of his grief, and joining it again shows that he's moving past it. Yeah,
it's about him getting his mojo back, to put it in the most you know, basic terms possible.
How Gibson got his groove back.
Let's specifically say Graham here. How Graham got his groove back.
Probably better, yeah.
No one wants Mel Gibson to get his groove back. But yeah, you're right. This is the scene that kind of like paints it out in black and white, where he is, where he's feeling. And you know, it's an effective scene. It's well acted. It does all the things you need it to do. But obviously the next morning's when, you know, Meryl's been in the closet watching the news reports and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's later that day, because I think there's the scene where Gibson talks to the kids about the book, and he's a little bit
that's
condescending
where he goes
about
up to the bedroom and he walks in. They're both wearing the tinfoil hats, and he's like, "Oh dear God, what have you been reading?"
But he talks to them about that, and I don't really have too much to say about that, other than it's just kind of an amusing scene. But he gets a phone call. Well, yeah, there you go.
Okay, yeah. No, I was just saying there's the one shot of the page in the book where they show what seems to be their farmhouse. It's like printed in the book, and they're like, "That's weird. It looks really, really close to our farmhouse." And then they show, like, beneath the alien ship burning down the house are 3 dead bodies that look like 2 kids and an adult. And Mel Gibson's like, "No, all right."
Yeah, this is a bit of fear-mongering. That's enough from, Dr. Boo Boo, or whatever his name was, who wrote the book. I mean, obviously it's not maybe exactly their house, but yeah, it's like close. It's a farmhouse. It's so close because they've got a very generic-looking farmhouse that it's like, oh, this is very concerning. But he gets a phone call, and you just hear, like, one voice, one word, I should say, and he basically suspects that this was Shyamalan, right? That this was Ray Reddy calling here. So he gets his coat on, and he's going off to see what he wanted. So he does, and he goes to his house, and there's no one there at first, but he finds him sort of sitting in his car. He's ready to leave. Like, this guy, Shyamalan's ready to just flee and go somewhere else. And you know, and again, it's a fairly well acted scene from Gibson, specifically, his reaction to everything Ray says. But Ray basically says, you know, like, I had never fallen asleep driving before. I've never fallen asleep again since driving, but I did that night. Not. Yeah. You'd think you'd be scared enough after that first time. He, you know, the stuff here that is a little on the nose is him saying, oh, like if it had been like a minute earlier or a minute later, I'd have just landed in a ditch with a headache. But no, it had to be that exact 10-second window as I was passing by your wife, kind of thing.
Cut it right there, I'd be fine with it. But then I think he literally says the line of, it's like it was meant to be. I'm like,
sure.
Yeah, man. You just want to lay it out that thick?
Yeah, definitely too thick. What I do like, though, is kind of just him apologizing and like seeing Gibson react to that, the way he kind of chokes up. But I also like, as much as, he's kind of giving himself an important detail here, I do kind of like this being the seed of the water thing, where he's like, oh, I'm going to go to the lake. And because I like the logic of it, of like, okay, all of the crop circles are not near water, so I'm going to take the gamble that they don't like water, and I'm going to go off.
I get where you're coming from with it. I just don't think it's crossing that threshold of I can suspend the disbelief of it. I think if there had been anything else that he pointed to as like an extra reason of, like he says, oh, they're all in crop fields, ... that means they're not near water. If he could just fill in that ... I would have been fine with it. But I feel like it's too much of a leap for this thing that ends up being critical to taking them out in the end.
Wait, so you literally think it'd be better if he just added on because they're all in crop circles? Because I feel like surely it would be better if he said, oh, all the places that the news is like, someone in the news said that all the places they're at are all very inland, so I'm going to like go near water. Like,
but that's the thing. If he said inland, I don't think at any point they said inland. They just said it's in, all the crop circles are at crops. That's all he said, which I'm like, you can have crops like right next to the coast. There's nothing stopping that.
Well, yeah, but the actual line he says, though, is that none of them are near water. He does say that.
Yeah, but again, just the way he phrased it, it sounded like he was saying the crops aren't near water. Maybe this is just an issue where he's not an actor. He's not giving the right tone or inflection or something like that. But like, it just didn't feel like he gave the right sentence to make it clear that there is something that normal people can pick up on this isn't near water. I didn't quite get that. It just felt like he pulled it out of his ass and just said, yeah, I'm going to go near water because they don't seem to like it. Bye.
Well, that's what I was saying, though. All I needed, I think, extra was maybe a line where he said, oh, someone in TV pointed out, you know, because then it's like, okay, you've got a ton of analysts on TV giving their opinions constantly, and someone said this, like, hey, we've noticed that none of their...
I don't even need it to be TV. Like, if he's listening to like conspiracy theory podcasts and like one of them are throwing it out, because this whole movie is just about the idea of, oh, everything happens for a reason.
Sure. The point I'm getting at, though, is that just the information isn't just coming from him. It's coming from some other source of people who have been like analyzing it ad nauseum, kind of thing. Like that would, I think that would have fleshed it out a little bit more. I don't have that much of a problem with it. I think it's reasonable enough, right?
I am fine with that moment happening if that were the only thing that happened. But then also he's like, as he's putting the key in the ignition, he's like, by the way, I also trapped one in my pantry. Bye. And he just peels out. And I'm like, no, that's too big. Like, you should be calling someone to come pick up the alien in your pantry, man.
I don't have a problem with that.
All right. That one felt more egregious to me. Like, you call the cops, you call the army, call that general down at the strip mall.
Maybe they're all too busy. I don't know. For me, it kind of gave this sense of like, the fact that he's not even like thinking to mention that until he's leaving. It's like, oh, he might try and go in there. I better warn him. Like, I don't know. I think that was intentionally trying to sell just the vibe of what's going on right now everywhere.
Personally, this is just like, this entire sequence was just one after another of like it must have been meant to be, followed by they don't seem to like water, followed by I've trapped one in my pantry. Just makes him out to be like a Mary Sue in this moment, where he's like, here's all the plot beats that you're going to need, and I'm the one responsible for all of them.
Yeah, I guess. I like some of these individual lines, and certainly his performance, I think, are worth critiquing, right? I think it was all meant to be was absolutely far too in the nose. I don't think he's the best actor in the world. So it comes off a little bit too much for what he's actually capable of. But honestly, the logic of the crop circles aren't anywhere near, or maybe it's not even the crop circles, maybe the lights that are in the sky are nowhere near water,
that would work.
right? If that's the idea he's getting across, that is a perfectly logical reason to conclude maybe we're safer near water. That's fine for me. And I'm fine with them just kind of mentioning the like, oh, by the way, I think I trapped one in the pantry at the end. I'm fine with that.
All right.
But mileage may vary. I mean, but honestly, part of this is just like, I've been watching this movie for 20 plus years. I can't imagine it playing out any other way. It's like a weird, like, it just is what it is now.
All right, that's fair. I mean, I'm coming in it with more or less a fresh eye, and I'm just seeing like that probably should have played out over like 2 scenes, and they should have been multiple characters rather than just front loading it all on this one guy right here.
I guess it probably should have been someone else playing the role at the very least. I imagine most people would agree with. But it does lead to the scene inside the house, which is pretty fun. I like it quite a bit, which is, Mel Gibson getting up to the door and trying to sound threatening and saying, hey, I'm the police and we've taken away your friends, and if you confess to what you've done, we'll give you the same deal we give that. And it's the way he delivers the line at the end of this where he says, don't throw away your life, son. It's like he gets too into character. Like he's like, oh, I'm doing like a bit I've seen on TV, which really made me laugh.
I thought he was slipping back into priest mode. I thought that was him slipping back into his like priest, like, oh, it was come my child, you don't need to do this sort of thing. I also just particularly like the idea that he's still not convinced. Like he sees this shadow under the door, but he's like, it's probably just a neighbor kid. Like this is all probably just a neighbor kid. Just he doesn't want to believe everything he's seen on TV up to this point. He's still convinced this is just Florence or whatever. There's
enough of a seed though, because he tries to like see with the reflection of a knife like under the door, and he gives up. He puts the knife away and he walks off, but he turns back. Like he can't. He's like, no, I need to check, and he storms back with the knife. And very quickly, when he looks again, this hand comes out at him, and he cuts off some of the fingers. And it's like, that was definitely not a human hand. So now he's a believer.
If I were in his situation, I absolutely probably would have done the same thing. However, I like to imagine like, they were all cool. They were all chill until Mel Gibson did this and he cut off their fingers. Now he's pissed.
That's funny. I don't think that's what's happened here, but yeah, it's funny.
No.
I mean,
like they've got a little barb that gives like poison gas. They're clearly hostile. And
obviously, this one specifically may have a little bit of a vendetta against Mel Gibson after this, based on the fact that he's the one that definitely shows up at the end. But other than that, I don't think there's anything specific here, other than just this one himself is pissed off at him for cutting his fingers off.
Yep. In between those 2 scenes of him talking to Shyamalan and going in the house, that's where we got the Brazilian birthday party sequence.
Well, that's why it's so neatly it fits together in the movie here, because you have seeing the birthday party shot of the alien walking past, and then you get the hand like in, so because one of it's through like kind of the barrier of it's a grainy VHS tape, so you get a full shot, but it's kind of like through this lens of distortion, and then you get the actual hand in the scene coming out from under the door and getting like the full kind of like impact of that. So you're getting both those things back to back, and it's like, okay, unquestionably there's goddamn aliens here. What we're going, and this kind of sends us into the third act pretty much once he gets back to the house.
Yep.
So good stuff. And once that happens, there's a vote where Mel Gibson's like, "Hey, did that book say anything about water?" And he's like, "No, it sounds made up."
That's okay. So this sequence, this is where I was like, am I supposed to be taking this seriously? Because this entire sequence, I was just imagining a laugh track over. Like, all of it was just weirdly funny to me. He enters into the house, and the first thing he sees is all 3 of them wearing tinfoil hats, and they like look up at him in unison, and he just like shakes his head, and it's just like, oh, Jesus, this is happening. And then like even down to the placing the vote stuff of like everyone places their vote, and then he's like, okay, well, my vote counts for 2. Like, there's something inherently weird and funny about all this, Whereas I feel like I'm supposed to be taking this seriously from how they're performing it.
No, it's supposed to be funny. It absolutely is. Again, it's like the scene from earlier on. It's supposed to be inherently funny and weird that they're having this debate, the tinfoil hats are on, the awkward comedy of like, okay, we're doing this vote, do we stay at the house or do we go to the lake? And all of that is played for mostly funny, even though they're obviously taking the decision seriously. But when the raw emotion of what this debate actually is comes out, then you feel it a bit more serious, right? Because it's been lighthearted up until that point. And the real raw emotion is this is about staying in the house because this is where they were with mum, right? That's why Bo changes her vote. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, this entire movie is still about the mother's death. And in fact, the implication I got from this is that, oh, he's not even really talked to the kids about their mum since she died, right? I think there's some later conversations that really highlight that. So for me, no, the awkward humor is supposed to be there. It's completely intentional, and then that raw bit at the very end kind of sort of lands a bit harder because it's had that kind of layer of absurdity up until that point.
I know that you're saying raw bit at the end. It is very close to the end, but I do want to point out that the scene punctuates and cuts on them saying like, oh, we got to board up the windows. Why? Because they seem to have trouble with pantry doors. And like, I just imagined the little Seinfeld ba-doop-a-doo-doo-doo playing on its way out there.
I think that was funny. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's not a serious line. It's like you had the emotional bit and then you doubled back into comedy again to weigh out the scene.
No, I disagree. I don't think that's a funny line, is what I'm saying.
No? Okay, fair enough.
I think that's just a straight, like, no, if they can't get through normal doors, then boards in the window should work. There's a logical explanation to me.
It's logical. It's just the way it was expressed seemed comedic to me. I don't know. This is I just get difference.
So yeah, they board up the doors. They don't have enough for all the windows, so they decide to board up some of the bedroom doors and just sort of all sleep in the downstairs. And it's like, okay, that's fine. And this is where, when he notices the kids are scared, Mel Gibson starts telling them stories about when they were born and, like, you know, the first time your mother held you and stuff like that. Well,
yes, that sequence does happen, but first we have his straight up mental breakdown at dinner.
No. Dinner's after.
Is it? I swear to God, all the when you were born stuff was happening like as the aliens were invading, like as they were at the house.
No, because they get finished boarding everything up, and then they start talking about what to have for dinner. And then he has the breakdown.
Right, and then after that, the aliens start invading after dinner, and that's when they have the conversation about.
No. It's because they're literally banging on the wood in the door as he's doing this, like. They're upstairs and they're hammering nails into the boards, and he turns around and starts telling this.
When he's talking to Morgan, it's all like panicked because that's when the aliens are starting to break down the doors.
Okay, David's totally right. I am totally wrong. He's going to prove that he's right in about a minute's time, but I just thought I'd interrupt myself from the future because I was saying a bunch of shit really confidently here. Ignore me. And then they're sitting there and they're saying, okay, I think it's Merle says, I'll make some sandwiches. And like, I think it's Bo's like, oh, I really want spaghetti. And Meryl's like, oh, we have to eat quick. And then that's when Graham says, nah, spaghetti sounds great. What about you, Morgan? And he's like, what, anything? He's like, yeah, French toast and mashed potato. I love mashed potato, but you can burn that French toast into the sun, as far as I'm concerned. Right. And then he's like, what about you, Meryl? And he's like, he pauses and goes, chicken teriyaki. He's like, good choice. I'm going to have a cheeseburger with bacon. Right. Extra bacon. And then smash cut. The kitchen's a filthy mess because they've made all this different food. But then
it's essentially a last like dinner. It's their last meal, more or less. Because at this point on the news, it's saying like there's hundreds of ships, hundreds of lights, everything's going tits up. Yep.
Because then they basically they're not eating. They're all just staring at the food, and he's like, you know, why is no one eating? And he starts getting angry. He starts getting mad that no one's eating. And then Morgan says, can we say a prayer? And he gets really pissed off at that suggestion and says, I will never waste another minute of my life on prayer. I'm just going to eat a bit of everything. And, you know, Morgan says, I hate you. And it's like everything's kind of coming to a
like Bo starts crying. He yells at her to, like, shut up. And then Morgan's just like, hey, don't yell at her. And yeah, it just gets... the emotional peak, more or less. It feels like this is everything coming to a head. Yeah, it kind
of has the breakdown. Even Merle says, hey, you know, Graham. And then, obviously, once he breaks down and starts crying, Morgan gets up and gives him a hug. And then so does Bo. And then the little comedy bit at the end is like you can just see Gibson's hand go over and like pull in Joaquin Phoenix by his shirt into the hug, so they're all part of the hug. And it's a sweet moment, and then it's when they're all hugging where the banging starts, and it's like, oh shit, they're here. We got to get going. It's an effective sequence. I think it also plays into there was a little scene earlier on when the TV was already in the closet where Morgan was mad at his dad and says to Meryl, "I wish you were my dad," and Meryl gets really stern. It's like, "Hey, don't you ever say anything like that again." I like the kind of like this very kind of believable amount of like him still liking his uncle, not liking his father right now, being mad at him, and then how it plays off Joaquin Phoenix's character where he kind of tries to address it.
I can't remember. It might have been during the dinner scene, but Morgan basically calls out Graham's character and says, "You were the one who let mom die."
Yeah.
And we find out what the situation was later on of like, he never had any choice in the matter, but it's entirely feasible how strained the relationship is now because the kids were like, "You made the call. Like we can't fully comprehend how complicated the situation was because we weren't there, but you were the one who let her die, more or less."
Yeah, it's it's a well acted scene, and it's kind of your big emotional bit before all the tense, scary stuff is going to start happening, which is more banging on the doors. I think there's a bit more of one of the stories. I mean, honestly, the argument of like when the stories happened might be confusing because the Bo one was definitely before the dinner. It's entirely possible the Morgan one was after the dinner, and that's why we're so confused.
Look, I'll let you have your reality, but I'm literally fast forwarding through it now, and I'm looking at the Bo story as they're doing extra boarding up of the windows and stuff after dinner. Like there's more boarding that they do after dinner at that point, and that's when they have the story.
Okay, well, fair enough. I may be wrong, but it's because I remember them boarding, and I thought that was all done before dinner.
Nope, they did one more on like the upstairs door or something like that, which I also thought was, I don't think it was an intentional comedy bit, and I'm sure there's a reason for it, but like they close, the door opens inwards to the bedroom, and then they put boards on the outside. So like the person could still open the door. Nothing was stopping. Like, and it's not even like it's like slatted enough that no one can fit through either. There's like 2 boards. So that was completely useless, but by God, they tried.
I mean, look, they're not engineers, okay?
No, definitely not.
That's all the answer I've got for you.
A priest and a baseball player trying to solve these problems.
Honestly, that one kind of feels like a bit of a flop. That feels like, well, this doesn't make much sense, but we're not going to draw attention to it. It's only if you're actually looking at how the door opens, you would be thinking about that. We're just going to not have to, no characters are going to address it. We're not going to show it. But it's there if you want to notice it.
The framing of the scene had to happen, and the house was already built. We couldn't change it. Sorry. Yeah. But yeah, then like again, they hear scratching from all over the place, banging on all the walls, and they're trying to figure out like how are they going to try to get in. They are intelligent. How's it going to happen? Yeah,
and they can tell that they're already outside, and they're kind of you can sort of hear them moving around, and then the sound mix here was very good. There was a lot of like tapping and banging going around the entire like sound field. But they eventually sort of run into the basement, and there's a series of sequences here where like the lights go out and you're not really sure what's happening for a second, and then the torch comes back on, and so on and so on. The big money moment, once they're sort of barricaded in there, is that an alien's hand is like coming out of like the furnace grate or whatever it is and grabs Morgan, and he has an asthma attack afterwards, but his inhaler's not here. So we get kind of this emotional like, oh, we have to try and keep him breathing even though he's struggling without the help of his medicine. And this is where Mel Gibson starts saying, I hate you to God, and all the rest of it.
Again, emotional peak. It does feel like a highly... tense is the wrong word, but like, you don't know if Morgan's going to make it. I think the movie does a good job of making it like, no, there is a full chance that they might kill this kid. Because some movies, you never feel like that's going to happen. You feel like that's always going to be off the table. I think it is a full chance here, and you really don't know how it's going to happen. And in terms of writing and acting, I think Mel Gibson does a great job of like trying to simultaneously calm his kid down, get him through the asthma attack, while also just being pissed off and angry that all this is happening. He does a good job of balancing the two.
Yeah. And the others look on, and eventually they turn off their lights to just conserve them because they won't last all night if to keep them on. And they just basically spend the night in the basement. We get a bit more of the the night of the wife's death here. Not all of it. They still save one part of it where he actually talks to her, but he gets the explanation of, hey, she's pinned against a tree. She's like still talking, but like as soon as that car moves or like she tries to move, that's it. It's over.
Yeah. Her lower half is effectively severed, and the only thing stopping her from bleeding out is the truck.
So he's like, oh, this is the last time I'm going to talk to my wife, and that's kind of like where he just starts to walk towards her basically, and that's where it comes out of it for this part. I always forgot this little bit that comes after though, which is where Meryl basically pulls him aside from the kids and says, hey, like, you're my big brother, you've always been there to kind of like look out for me and stuff like that, but like I saw something in your eyes last night, probably when he was saying I hate you to God, where you had lost all hope, and I don't want to see that in your eyes ever again. And gets kind of stern with him, like, no, I'm like telling you that's never happening again. And like Graham just kind of has to accept it and say, yeah, okay. Like it felt like a genuine thing, was like, oh, I recognize you maybe were at your lowest point ever as far as like, maybe not the darkest night of your life, because that's probably the night she died, but like in terms of like where you are with your faith, that was you at your absolute lowest.
Yeah, 100%. He thought they were all going to die that night. Like, last night was going to be the night that it just all ended. And the fact that they made it through, it doesn't feel like he had any faith that was going to happen. Yeah,
absolutely. So then it's time for the climax. They go back upstairs because they have to for the inhaler.
Yeah, they specifically point out, there's a radio down there that says, they all started leaving. It all started like they all just started leaving. And I think it's on the radio that they say a small group in the Middle East has managed to like fight them off using a primitive method, but they don't say what it was specifically.
Yeah, they also say that like Philadelphia is like the ships over Philadelphia have definitely left. Now, that doesn't guarantee that the ones near their farm are gone.
Yes, but I think they also say like, oh, but like some of the wounded aliens were left behind. Like none of them, not all of them got evacuated. Some of them were left behind. And I think they also mentioned that a lot of people have died because of them being harvested, and they have this poison gas or something that they secrete.
Yeah. In fact, one of the little details that adds to the tension earlier on is they suspect that there's a ship within like a mile of any crop circle, which of course adds tension because it's like, oh, that means they're going to be within a mile of us. Like we're there. We're at the epicenter of like one of their ships then.
That's why their farmhouse got attacked.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, so that added some tension earlier, and they go back up, and like, Morgan's feeling a little bit better. He still needs his medicine, but he's kind of, he's breathing okay. And he's like, hey, like, and then Bo comes right in and says, hey, the TV, everyone's dancing and it's kind of cute. And he's like, oh, do you want to see Morgan? He's like, oh, I'll go get the TV for you. So this setup of the TV being wheeled into the closet so many minutes ago, probably a good 2/3 of the movie ago at this point, pays off here when Mel Gibson rolls it back out, and then you see in the big reflection, once he stops moving, the alien standing there holding Morgan.
You know how there are like certain movies, I can't think of any offhand, but there are certain movies that do not work anymore with the idea that everyone has a cell phone. Like it only exists within a certain time period.
Yeah.
This TV shot does not work anymore.
That's true.
Like, you cannot make this happen.
Very true. I mean, and honestly, even like the VHS usage in the movie, I think I'd already abandoned my VHS around the time this movie came out. But CRTs were definitely still a thing for another good 5 or so years.
Yeah,
on
just
mass.
not anymore. And you got to go to a public school system in order to have a TV on wheels. There's no other way to make it happen.
But, it's a great shot. It pays off. And then you notice that when you see the alien sort of like dead on, that it's like mimicking like the wallpaper like behind it and stuff like that. Yeah,
like he's grabbing hold of, he's holding Morgan's body, and you see his hand is like the pattern of Morgan's shirt.
Yeah, and the recurring themes of the movie's like music come to a head here with the strings just going absolute nuts with the da-na-na, 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 just going mental with it. And this is where it sort of flashes to like, the final part of the night the wife died.
Yeah, this is where it does the final part of the night the wife died, but also it does the whole thing immediately following that of like, here were all the hints. Here's how we showed everything was going to happen, and it does it all in just like really quick montage.
Which is it's portrayed as he's like remembering all these moments right now. Yeah. He's thinking about it. And that's what the justification is for seeing them. Bit heavy-handed, admittedly. I will say, but she like says tell Bo this, tell Morgan that, and it's a heartfelt goodbye, and then finally tell Merle to swing away, and then he comes out of it, and he's had all these other little flashbacks, and he's like, Merle, swing away, and the camera pans over and lands on the baseball bat just before he says that, because it's like he realizes, oh, it's there, swing away. So he does. He tries to hit the alien a bunch of times and makes it stumble
Morgan
back.
Gets hit with the poison gas before
he does,
any of
yes.
that happens. Yep.
But he stumbles back into like, the cabinet or whatever, and a glass of water. So this was something that we didn't really mention too much earlier. But the quirk of Bo, the little girl, is that she's very fussy about her water being clean, to the point where she has lots of like half finished or half like full glasses of water around the house because she keeps saying it's contaminated, or there's hair in it, or a dust in it. And I'll be honest, I relate to this kid because, well, I'm not like this. I definitely, if I see a hair in my water, like I'm not taking it out, I'm just pouring the water away. Like, I'm not having it.
Sure, like if it's a full hair or something like that, or you see like little flecks of something in there, fine, fair enough. But I think at the beginning of the movie, when we were really setting this up, her some of the stuff she was saying was it's contaminated, and like it has her brother's amoebas in it or something like that. And I'm like, all right, kid, just drink your water.
Look, obviously they set it up as like overly paranoid about her water. Like, I'm not saying she isn't, but like I can sympathize. Like, she's at a 10 out of 10. I can sympathize with like a 3 out of 10 of this.
That's fair. I mean, there's been plenty of times where like I've had a glass of water, I look at the bottom, I see there's something, and I'm like, I'll just drink around that. Like, whatever.
Oh, no. It's done. Like, I'll use the word. It's contaminated. I ain't touching it. All right.
Fair enough. I guess I just assume that there isn't any, like, rat droppings in my house that I need to worry about.
I'm not worried about, like, anything that might have a disease. I'm just worried about anything that I don't want touching my water or food to be touching my water or food.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
So,
I mean, I keep all of my glasses in my lead-lined cupboard, so should be fine.
So anyway, the water spills on the alien and it burns the alien, and immediately like the camera sort of focuses on all these glasses of water that have, again, it's meant to be, they've all been sitting around so that there's all these like basically ammunition for this fight where Merle can keep hitting the glasses of water into the alien and get him wet, basically soak him until he's dead.
It's like acid. Yeah.
And the kids run out, and like I get that people probably, because obviously the weird expectation going into this, without spoiling those other movies, but get into this movie, Shyamalan had kind of built a reputation for having a twist, right? And this was kind of this movie's big reveal at the end, is all these things were all set up for this. And it's not really that much of a twist per se, is just kind of bringing everything together. When I said earlier that I think the emotion of the scene works, I do feel that, like, as the music ramps up and like the girl runs out with her dad holding the boy, and like Meryl stays to keep fighting the alien and hitting them with the water as he's holding him outside, like the emotion of it all and hoping that he's okay all works for me. The actual kind of like, are you satisfied with the swing away being set up for the bat being there? Right. That, I think that's a different question. Is that a cool reveal?
Yeah. No. We've had this exact conversation pretty recently. I can't remember. I think it was over on Collector's Cut, where like the movie itself was meh, like in terms of plot, in terms of story, but the emotions I felt like it did a little bit better with. I feel like it managed to hit a little bit better in terms of the actual feeling that I was supposed to feel. And as much as I was complaining about like comedic scenes early on and maybe not feeling it, everything here in this final bit of like going out, making sure the kid's all right, like seeing if he got poisoned and all that stuff, it works. I have no problem with the emotions in this scene. I think it works, and it works all the way right up to the end where you have this sense of relief that he found his faith again and all this stuff. But it is a bold move from a writer-director to make the ending of your movie literally pointing out the contrivances and saying, that was all on purpose. And I don't know how I feel about that, because like saying that like, oh, all this stuff happened for a reason from the viewpoint of the story, yes, that's a good idea. You can have that. That's okay for the characters. But from the viewpoint of like the film and the choices you had to make to get there is, yeah, it's just pointing out like we made a lot of contrivances in this movie, and you just have to accept that like that's how it was always supposed to be.
I'm going to maybe fight you on the word contrivances a little bit there, because
All right.
the baseball bat being there is not a contrivance. The only contrivance about it, the only thing that makes it feel that way, I should say, is because it's set up. If they had never mentioned a baseball bat, would you feel it's contrived that there's a baseball bat in the house? You wouldn't. It's not weird.
No, okay, so the baseball bat is probably the lesser of them all. I would say that the water glasses being placed around, and it happens to be that the illness is water, and then the cherry on top being he didn't get affected by the poison gas because his lungs were closed because he has asthma. Like, and that's the thing that sends Graham over the edge. That's the thing where he's like, oh, he managed to survive because his lungs were closed. It all was for a purpose or whatever else. I'm like, this has all been wildly just, oh, how lucky are we that that happened?
I think that's a very cynical way of looking at it. It's particularly the lungs closed thing. To me, that's the one that's like, out of all of these things that pay off at the end, this idea that, oh, he's going to survive this because he has asthma, so therefore he didn't breathe in the poison. Like, that's the one where, like, all the other ones don't matter. All the other ones are like, okay, they're there to give it more of like a big twist moment feel where all these things were set up and they're all paying off. But the one thing that actually is there that you're supposed to kind of like latch onto and accept as some kind of like divine meaning is the idea that he has this illness purely so he can maybe survive this, because anyone else who doesn't have this would just breathe in the poison and die. So I'm not necessarily saying that it works. I don't think it's a contrivance to me.
I specifically said at the beginning of this is that I think that there is a difference of it's okay with making the point of the movie. The entire point of the movie is the idea that everything happens for a reason, like you should have faith in these things, there's no such thing as coincidence. If that's the story you're telling, then of course things like this need to happen in order to sell that point. But from just a screenwriting perspective, I do think that the fact that he has asthma does not exist independent of the poison not taking effect. He has asthma because we needed the poison not to take effect. Like, it was all worked backwards from a way. We didn't start with this as a character trait and then we used that for the benefit of the plot. We knew what we needed from him in the plot, and we gave him this character trait because of it.
That's such a weird criticism to me. Like, that's the way how you write most stories, though. Like, you know what the point at the end is going to be, so you write all the things to build up to that point.
But like there's better ways to hide it. There's like other things can come out of him having asthma. If they had like a sequence where like, I don't know, the reason he's so into books is because like he tried out for sports teams and then he had asthma and then like he had to stop doing that or something like that. Like that could be something that like masks it a little bit. It adds a little bit of extra flair to it that makes it.
That's just explaining it more, though. That's not necessarily giving it more of a purpose.
But it does more to mask it from the direct correlation, the one-to-one where it's like he has asthma because he's going to be poisoned in the end. If we add on extra things that add depth to it, I think that does a better job of hiding it.
But I think you, in the way you just said that, are ignoring all the other things that the asthma actually did before that point, though.
What did it do?
The entire sequence at the basement where like he has his whole crisis of faith is because his son's having an asthma attack without his medicine. That all happens because he has asthma. Saying that he only has asthma so he survives the poison at the end is factually incorrect.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I'll give you that one. But I'm sticking with the water glasses and stuff like that. That absolutely is the same.
Oh, sure, that's
same thing, but without that.
That's just set up, and then you have to pay off at the end. And it's the more gimmicky one, so that's the one everyone likes to make fun of, which is fine, whatever. Right. The asthma one is the one that feels like it's important and needs to be there. Like, you don't have to have the other two. All you need to have him saying is he survived, his lungs were closed, that'll let him survive. And then it turns out that was right. And yeah, he wakes up, he's fine. Everyone reacts to it. So, yeah, I mean, I think that is fine for me. I guess. Yeah, some people, I guess, just don't like the way Shyamalan writes, and that's fine, I guess. And people still have problems with his modern movies and the way he writes. And there's definitely still some rough edges and some kind of like I definitely get the feeling sometimes with the way he writes certain scenes and even just the whole movie is that he just wants the movie to feel a certain way, and he doesn't really care if you think a scene is like overly realistic. And I think there's a lot of people who get really annoyed if something isn't realistic. And I mostly don't give a shit, right? I would rather something feel like a cool movie than feel realistic, as long as it feels like it's building and it's got a purpose and all the other things.
Yeah. I mean, we've done plenty of movies that fall under like art house in terms of like general vibes or whatever. And those movies are littered with those scenes where it's more about the emotion than it is the actual what's happening plot direction wise. I think Shyamalan has kind of been... His undoing is that he is so mainstream in a way, at least with these early movies.
Well, his movies appeal to the mainstream audience as well, is the thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that he managed to hit it off so big so early on that despite having a little bit more of an artistic flair than your more mainstream, like action thriller directors, I think people aren't really equipped to deal with that in the mainstream audiences. So when we don't have something of like, you know, the sequence of them taking out the alien armada, Independence Day style. It's something where you're like, this is it? This is all we were doing here?
It's honestly, in many ways, he's very much like Tarantino. And I'm not saying he's as good as Tarantino or that they're like, you know, one-to-one, but that idea of Tarantino is just constantly making movies based on the movies he liked when he was growing up. And you can see all those influences. And I feel the same thing with Shyamalan. It feels like he's having fun here. But in this one particularly, it feels like he's having fun. We're just doing all the types of scenes with how they're interacting with the aliens, or how he's framing the moments where characters are starting to believe things or witness them or so on. It feels like you know, whereas Tarantino might be like taking like a samurai film and a grindhouse movie and whatever blaxploitation movie he watched in this, you know, in his childhood from the video store that he worked at. Shyamalan is like taking something from Hitchcock and maybe something from like, I don't know, like another thriller from the 70s or whatever. He
seems, at least from my experience with him, he seems to take something that is a really easy to explain premise and just going in an opposite direction that you would expect it to go. Like in any other sort of standard film. Like this one, alien invasion. Okay, we all know how that story plays out. Your Independence Days, your stuff like that. But he's like, but we set it on a farm that a person has lost his faith and we barely deal with the aliens. Like the aliens are still busy over in the other cities. They're just kind of on the tangential side of it. And I think that that's a interesting way to do things. I think that he does have interesting ideas here. The question is, how do they play out? And does he try to go maybe a bit too far with them at times?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you get into the movies that he did after this, we get into a whole lot of weird stuff. But I think for these first three movies, I think to some extent, part of the what makes them work and what makes them interesting is he takes like a really genre premise and he takes them seriously. And I know there's jokey stuff in this movie, but it feels like he's always taken the premise seriously. And I think that's like part of the appeal of this early stuff. And then obviously it went off the rails afterwards, but that's another that's discussion for another time. Anyway, the movie ends with you know, them all sort of like embracing outside as Morgan's alive, and we get the final shot of the movie, which is the camera coming back through the window. It turns to winter to show time has passed, and it pans around to the bathroom once again, where Mel Gibson comes out wearing his reverend collar and whatnot. And we hear like happy noises in the distance of the kids playing, and he puts on his jacket and walks off a frame, and that's how it ends. So, you know, his faith has returned, things are okay again, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I that's kind of the point where, again, my wife was really into the movie. She was all up for it, and then it ended on just such kind of a, I don't want to say somber note, but a clarifying note. It's just a single shot showing him getting ready, and then you hear everything else through like subtext in the background. And going back to the idea of not playing into like blockbuster stereotypes or the mainstream sort of stuff, that's a very different way to end a movie. And I think that that's something that is going to be very polarizing as to, as the last thing you get from it, is that something that is okay with you sitting with?
Yeah, I actually love the final shot. That's one of my favorite moments of the movie. I think
That's fair.
I think it's a more interesting way. You don't need anything else. Like this tells you everything you need to know. You got the story of how he got his faith back, and then this just sort of shows and confirms that he did. He went all in again. You know, he's back to being what he used to be. He got his mojo back, to go back to that that phrase.
I mean, I honestly, I didn't dislike the ending. I thought it was fine. I thought it was good. I think my biggest thing is from the realization, like from the montage sequence to the end of the movie, I felt like it was sprinting through it a little bit quickly. It felt like we were kind of rushing to an ending. I would have liked to have taken maybe just one more moment and reflect, just like one tiny little time of like showing like them coming back together as a family visibly. But beyond that, it was fine. Like I didn't dislike the ending by any stretch.
Yeah. No, I always like the ending to Signs. And again, it's maybe more of the character and emotional side of it, working perhaps more than the twisty element of it. But you know, some people. But to be fair though, without spoiling it, that's kind of true of Unbreakable. Unbreakable's quote unquote twist is not the strong part of Unbreakable's ending.
Oh yeah,
by any stretch.
The fact that Unbreakable ends where it does is kind of just like there's got to be a post-credit scene, right? Or like we got to be setting up for a sequel, right? And eventually we got there. But Jesus.
I mean, I don't think it needed one, to be honest. But like,
no.
But you know, it's not the same as The Sixth Sense. But the ending of The Sixth Sense is so obviously phenomenal and like once in a career level of like quality twist that it just redefines the movie and everything. You know, it was never going to be that type of twist again ever, and it was pointless trying to chase it. And I feel like maybe he was for a little bit, and until he learned. Yeah,
and that's where I think the low point of his career really was just I got to get back to Sixth Sense again.
Yeah, it's you know it's tough, but I think as a genre movie, as a sort of a different take on the sci-fi, the alien invasion, with strong characters who I think are a likable group. I think the family are all very likable. I think it's very easy to root for them in the third act and want everything to be okay and for those relationships to mend. I like that as much as it's very on the nose with some of it. So everything happening for a reason and stuff. I think there's other stuff that isn't as on the nose. They never outright say, "Oh, they've not talked about the mum since she died," but you get that through how they're talking about her now and how Graham's finally opening up and using that to try and comfort them because he realizes they need that, and so on. So, no, it's good. It's a good movie. All right, David, what are you rating Signs out of 10?
I think I'm still okay with this one. Like so many times when we talk about a movie that I'm unsure of, like I bounce wildly as we go through the review of pointing out things that I didn't appreciate or pointing out things that I completely overlooked and were actually trash. This one, I feel like I'm still pretty much where I was at coming into it, and that is a 7.5. I think it's a good movie. I think that overall, the emotion, which is obviously the point of the movie, is there. It works. It does a good job of setting up all of these things that it pays off later down the road. The caveat that bumps it down from being great is that I do think that it's very heavy-handed with what it does, and I do think that it could have gone a little bit deeper in justifying some of those, as you said, not contrivances, but things that have only set up for the ending of the movie to work out. Those are my big complaints there, but 7.5 still, I recognize talented director at this point behind the camera, and he was having a good time with it.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it dips into great territory because it just feels so playful with everything it's doing. I think the emotion lands, I think it looks great, I think it sounds great. I mean, yeah, it still works for me quite well. I like the perspective that it comes from, and I find the characters likable, and I want them to find the happy ending, as it were. So I'm debating between an 8 and an 8.5. That's kind of where I'm landing in. I said this in the ratings rundown, but I think the script is maybe the slightly weaker element, although still good. But then the directing, the sound, all these other things kind of elevate it. And I'm okay with that. So I am going to give it 8.5.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it holds up surprisingly well. I think people who always hated the ending are still going to hate it and just want to mock it, and that's fine. But like, I think if you get into this, if you vibe with the way it's telling its story and the slightly quirkiness of the characters, which I do like, and this kind of feeds into your whole like not liking kids being too smart kind of thing, but just in general. I don't need characters to feel like real people when they talk. I don't mind a stylized like way of character speaking, as long as it's consistent and it's not. I mean, obviously, it's very variable because sometimes it can be annoying depending on who it is and how they're written. But as someone who loves Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I don't need them to sound like real people. I like that they're all very witty, but it's a very specific tone and style of witty that is consistent. And I like the way that the characters in this movie talk to each other.
No, yeah, I when it comes down to that stuff, I always come back to Aaron Sorkin, where Aaron Sorkin has such a distinctive writing style for dialogue, but everyone has it. Everyone has that sort of style to them. I find it more annoying when a kid is the only one who feels above their age or feels that level of witty, because it just feels like, all right, well, you didn't want to write a kid. You wanted to write an adult, but you needed some emotional impact of it being a kid.
Not that this kid is witty in this case, yeah, but I get you the example you're making.
Yeah, he just feels like very, very intelligent for his age, and like that whole monologue when he's talking about saying like, this is the most important moment of our lives. It's like, boy, you should be talking about Pokemon. What are you doing?
No, you shouldn't, because Pokemon's stupid. But yes, a good thing.
This is 2002. Pokemon was still top tier at this point.
Yeah, I know. I remember, and I still hated it then.
Because you're an old fogey and you weren't in the right age group.
No, I was in the right age group, though. Pokemon was hit its peak when I was like 7.
All right, fair enough. I mean, I was fully into Pokemon, so I consider myself in the age group, but...
I remember people getting Game Boy Colors and playing their Pokemon Red and Blue. I was there for that, the dawn of the whole thing. And
you were sitting off to the side saying, this art house film is so cool. Why is no one talking about this?
No, I was into kid stuff, but I just... why would I play a Game Boy game? They look like shit. I was at home playing a PlayStation. These Game Boy games had like 4 pixels.
Yep, there it is. All right.
4 pixels.
Fair enough. We couldn't all get into the Crash Bandicoots. We couldn't all afford a PlayStation, Pete. Sometimes we had to get a Game Boy.
Saying now the PlayStation was this uber expensive. It was like there was a relatively like consoles now are expensive. Consoles back then were,
absolutely.
I'm pretty sure you got it for like less than 200 after like a year of being out or something like that.
Yeah, but it got to adjust for inflation.
Sure. Anyway, the point is that Pokemon sucks. What you want from me?
Tune in next week for Pokemon the first movie. Whatever.
Honestly, the Pokemon cartoon was probably the first time I looked at something and went, I don't like how that looks. And it's only in hindsight I go, oh, I bet it's because that was probably my first taste of anime. I was probably like, I don't like how this looks. This is anime.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, it looks better now. Not the Pokemon show independently, but anime as a whole.
Sure, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it. Not for me. Anyway, so that's Signs, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed our discussion on Signs. So yes, that was a vote winner. Next week on the Atomic Cinema Experiment, we're actually doing another vote winner. Just the way things have worked out, we're doing like one month's vote winner and then immediately doing the next month's vote winner. But we're doing something a bit more old school, a bit more classic. We're doing 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So that is what's coming next week on the show. In a minute, David's got a homework movie he'll talk about. Most weeks he'll go back and watches a sci-fi movie that we did in the show before he joined the show, so he can be caught up. He'll talk about that in a minute. But just before he jumps in with that, I'll just say, you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Really helps out, keeps everything possible. You get access to the ratings rundown segments that we do for every episode, as well as a bonus monthly show we do called Extra Reels, where we review some of the worst movies of all time. There's been a couple of sci-fi-esque movies on that. Typically, we'll keep sci-fi for Ace, but sometimes if it's like a clearly Extra Reels level movie, we may just do it on there. But there's a variety of things on there to check out. Plus, check out Collector's Cut, the other movie podcast we do together, where we do seasons of movies. Right now, we're doing a season of Hong Kong John Woo directed films on Collector's Cut. So if that sounds like fun, you can check out that. But yes, David, what was this week's homework movie?
Well, I decided to keep it in the vein of Alien, and I went ahead and did one that has been on my radar for quite some time, and that is District 9.
Really? We did that before you? Okay.
Yep. Nope, wasn't me. It was barely. Like it was
close. Yeah, okay.
I switched over episode, I think 216, and this was episode 200. So
fair enough. It was close.
Right before the lab. No, yeah, I've seen District 9 before. I think maybe once or twice. I have in my mind very vividly the first 30 minutes. Like I can picture all of that exactly the way it played out. And then after that, it was just kind of a blob of, I can't remember exactly how all this played out. So watching it back now, I mean, this movie's great. I don't know, like the biggest disservice to this movie is that it came out in the same year as Avatar.
I am so glad you said that, because I thought the tone was leading towards you being meh on it, and I was getting ready to beat the shit out of you.
Yeah. I gotta subvert expectations every once in a while. No, I mean, this movie's fantastic. It's I think it really draws back to that idea of sci-fi being a way to explore our world's things. Like the problems facing our world is to take it, put it in this extraordinary setting, and then explore it that way. And this is the poster child for that. Like it is absolutely the idea of, here's some crappy things that people did in the past. Let's set it in a bit more of a sci-fi world and then explore what that means and what all of this other stuff involving like race and segregation and like straight up concentration camps and stuff. Let's just throw that all in an alien sci-fi setting and see how it comes out. And it doesn't pull its punches. The framing device of it being like a documentary is a fantastic choice, even if like it's one of those things where if it were a lesser done movie, the fact that it kind of disappears as a framing device halfway through would disappoint me, but it does it so skillfully that like I don't even notice. It just continues to do a great job the whole way. So no, I mean it top to bottom works. It's I'm pretty sure it was just the South African film, right? Like this wasn't even really like a Hollywood too much.
Yeah, it was kind of, I mean, it was picked up for distribution afterwards. I don't know, but it was definitely made in South Africa. And I think the thing for me as well is that on top of everything you just said, which is all well done, like the effects on the budget they had are fantastic, and the action is very thrilling. It's like once things start coming together and you realize like how things are going to play out, it's actually very exciting to see certain characters come together and how everything plays out. No, it's great. Like, you know, I really like Avatar, and there's definitely some parallels in the plot that you could probably make, but District 9 is the better movie.
Yeah. No, and that's what I'm saying. The biggest detriment is it not even in plot similarity, but just the idea that it came out the same year as Avatar. I think that there is a strong idea that this would be viewed as like the strongest sci-fi film of 2009 if it weren't for Avatar coming out.
Well, I mean, commercially, sure, but I actually think, like reputation-wise, it probably is seen as stronger than Avatar.
Reputation-wise, yeah.
Because I
on District 10 though.
True, I don't know if I want District 10 to be honest, but but 2009 was such a pivot point because I really felt like at the time that between District 9, Moon, Avatar, and even like the Star Trek reboot was that year, it felt like, oh, sci-fi is like cooking. We're back with science fiction, and District 9 is a big part of that. So no,
absolutely.
Great stuff.
So yeah, no, I mean, everything you said I agree with in terms of effects as well. But overall, the less said about it, almost the better, because like the twists and turns it goes on are so interesting the whole way through. And that's the other part of it. It's such a well-developed world, because it's not like it's just like, oh, the aliens arrived, let's just see what happens there. Like, no, it starts with a time jump. It starts with like all this time has passed and now we're already at this boiling point. So yeah, I mean, you and Tara both gave it a 9.5. I find it very hard to argue that point. So I'll end up there with you. I'll say a 9.5.
Whoa, triple 9.5s. What a glowing set of reviews.
Yeah.
Plus, also, I mean, didn't really bring it up, but like, what's his face as Vicus is so entertaining.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like,
no. You talk about a guy who can perfectly play both a comedic role and like a leading action kind of guy, and he just nails both of them.
Yeah. These stupid prawns. I can't do the accent, but like just the way it comes out is so good. No, excellent stuff. So yeah, this has been a pretty long episode of the Atomic Cinema Experiment. Thank you for joining us, everyone. We do appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation on Signs, and a little bit at the end of District 9. You can go back and check out the episode where I reviewed that with Tara from apparently episode 200, give or take. Yep. So yes, we'll see you from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea next week. Thank you once again for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction in computer at Salsa.